Yeah, it's a very good morning to you from the Newsroom team. We're live from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm with Elvis Preslin as always. And Elvis, today the question is,
spray your troubles away.
Are we a doomed nation in front of the Lord, the eyes of the Lord? Look at this.
This is what the pastor is spraying to his congregants, and that's what we talk about today. This is what he used to say that he heals his people.
The question then is, where do we draw the line with religious practice? Yes, it's a very serious question because it seems as if pastors can do anything or feel emboldened to do anything and everything in the name of the Lord. Elvis, we're also running a poll on this very question.
The poll currently as it stands, we asked the question, should the prophet of doom be arrested? And 80% of you are saying yes, he should. There's 166 votes in thus far. 20% are saying no. I wonder, that's probably the 20% of the congregation, perhaps.
That is very possible, but 166 votes, it's quite clear. People are saying arrest this guy. And I think South Africans are getting a little bit sick and tired of, men of the cloth coming out and making their congregants do all kinds of things. We've had snake eating, grass eating. Now we have doom. What is next? Elvis, can I spray you and see if it works?
Well, unfortunately, it won't work on me because I'm doomed already.
You're doomed already.
But we'll talk to the CLR to find out a little bit more about this particular topic, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. And that's part and parcel of our theme today. It's all about religious freedom and religious
Guerrilla marketing 101. It's doomed, but there's a lot of other news and serious news at that. Let's go to Elvis for the headlines.
The African Christian Democratic Party is considering legal action against self-styled prophets who abuse their congregations. The ANC and its veterans have agreed to convene a follow-up meeting to resolve all outstanding issues. And meanwhile, COSATU's three-day Central Executive Committee meeting continues today. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Apparently, we are not doomed on the sports front, are we, Kendall?
Neither is FUF, and that's exactly one of the headlines. So today, you know what, my people perish for lack of knowledge, and I know you're going to be having a massive discussion on this. It's going to be very interesting. I'll be looking forward to the discussion again. We're going to be having on the prophet of doom. Now, good morning to you. This is what we have for you in the sports today.
We have enough quality to win the game, so I think it's all up to us in the day to get the 3 points.
Kaizer Chiefs are eager to get back to winning ways in this week's round of Upset Premiership fixtures. And Mamelodi Sundowns' Slop Pokekane is shortlisted for FIFA's Best Goal for 2016 award, the famed Puskás Award. All this as Proteas captain Faf du Plessis finds out his fate today in a closed-door ICC hearing on his alleged tampering with the ball in the second test against Australia.
A good team effort. Bowling has been spot on, fielding is...
I'll have you know that they're currently in that hearing, started an hour ago. We will be hoping to find out shortly what's happening with Faf du Plessis. But for now, it is back to the news with Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The African National Congress and its veterans have agreed to convene a follow-up meeting to resolve all outstanding issues. The governing party's National Working Committee met the veterans in Pretoria yesterday to discuss their concerns around the state of the ANC and the country.
The public spat between the ANC and its veterans who have recently been outspoken against allegations of corruption plaguing the party's leadership. They raised concerns about the moral compass of the current leadership following the loss of major metros in the August local government elections. Finally, President and the NWC members under one roof have struggled stalwarts. Despite earlier dismissing the stalwarts, the ANC is now singing a different tune.
We're trying to meet as soon as possible. We're suggesting Friday this week. They are conferring. They will come back to us so that we conclude these issues as soon as possible.
We have agreed that we will be guided by the culture, tradition, and values of the ANC. And that is extremely important for us to understand that. And as SG said, we had very robust discussions. There were difficult moments. We will address them. There were issues, also many issues that we agreed upon. And therefore, We are guided by the president when he said we should meet so that by the time December ends, we've resolved some of the issues that were outstanding.
The meeting comes a year before the ANC selective conference.
The much-awaited meeting between the ANC veterans and the party leadership finally taking place here. Montlengani Dipoko, SABC News, Pretoria.
Speaking earlier on Morning Live, the ANC Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte says the meeting with the ANC veterans yesterday was very fruitful and that they will continue to engage with them.
I think this meeting was probably one of the best things that has happened to the ANC in a long time because it consolidated the values of the ANC in one space where people were able to speak very openly about their concerns. We haven't had an opportunity to engage very deeply. There wasn't enough time, and we've agreed to continue with the discussion. But the entire NWC of the ANC was present, as well as about 45 veterans, stalwarts and veterans of the ANC. Primarily, the discussion verged on the fact that the veterans felt that there need to be a strengthening of the ANC and that the values of the ANC need to be re-inculcated. There was disappointment about the leadership's lack of implementing decisions of the National General Council, looking at questions of, obviously the top of mind issue for them is this broad perspective of an ANC that is a corrupt ANC.
Yeah. Now, the African Christian Democratic Party, the ACDP, has strongly condemned self-styled prophets who abuse their congregations. But before we get to that story, yesterday on the ANC, we asked you the question, of course, what were your expectations? And this is what you had to say. This one coming from Namisile says, I expect them to embrace the Freedom Charter and reject the perpetuation of the colonial economy under Oppenheimer and Rupert. This one from Il Signor Leon says, the president is taking a great path to face with the hashtag the veterans, as they are not clear about their intentions and they are unreasonable. My ANC, says Signor Leon. This one from Gibson said, they must reconcile and close this matter and move on to important stuff. Now, these were some of your comments yesterday on the question that we posed to you. What is your expectations? As you heard also there from the ANC, there will be a follow-up meeting to discuss the issues with the veterans. Let's now go back to our story, top story this morning. The African Christian Democratic Party, ACDP, has strongly condemned self-styled prophets who abuse their congregations. Now, it was reacting to news that the self-proclaimed prophet, Letabo Rabaloha, has been spraying doom onto the faces of his congregants. Now, he claims this is to heal them. Social media have shown photographs of Rabaloha spraying the doom aerosol on volunteers during his church service over the weekend at the Mount Zion General Assembly. The 24-year-old prophet said people came with injuries, and after they were sprayed, they were healed. He has been dubbed the prophet of doom. He says he is glorifying God by spraying his congregants.
Many are ashamed of the gospel that they preach. That is why you see them not practicing the other side of the gospel, because this is the practical part. And we are led by the Spirit, and I'm not ashamed of the gospel that I preach. This is the gospel of Christ.
Sorry, I struggled to hear you there for a second. You said this is the gospel of?
This is the gospel of Jesus Christ. We are not ashamed.
Not ashamed to be spraying doom into your congregants' faces, even though you know the dangers of doom.
The thing is that when you are carrying the Spirit Christ, everything that you do is the impossible. So I deal with the impossible because I believe in Christ. He will never put me to shame. That is why we don't have fear. We know the side effect. We know what can happen. But once you hear the word from above, you are not shaken. All these things, if someone can come and say, having a problem with 123, and I believe there is a photo there of a young guy who came there with an issue of ice, where we sprayed in the ice immediately. His eyes were clear. He opened up his eyes. So these are the words of Jesus Christ.
So what you're saying is you sprayed doom into this man's eyes, and his eyes are now fine. He's been healed.
Yes.
But Pastor, with all due respect, I mean, you've read statements that have come out from the company that basically brings doom into the country, and they are saying, please, they're trying to contact you to say it's exceptionally dangerous to spray this into people's faces because you could cause irreparable damage to them, and that this is a risk to people's health. Do you not? Does this not concern you?
Let's just check, is it biblical or what? It's biblical. You see? That's the main thing. It's biblical.
Yeah.
Biblical. Everything that we are doing is biblical. So we believe in God.
It's biblical. It's biblical. So
when we believe in God, we are practicing what we believe in.
Yeah, yeah. Prophet, have you ever had doom sprayed in your face?
Hello?
Have you ever had doom sprayed in your face?
Have I ever?
Prophet, the question that I'm asking you is, have you ever had the doom sprayed in your face?
Normally when I do things, I do it over myself first. If I'm eating a flower, if I'm eating grass, I take it and eat first, okay? To show that I'm in the spirit.
Yeah. So you're saying that you have sprayed the doom into your face. You have done this before?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you find that it's not a problem, that it's absolutely fine for you to be doing this?
Yes, I believe in everything. That's why I said we are in the spirit. How can we question the spirit? These are the works of the spirit. Carnal people cannot understand it. These are the works of the spirit. Like, listen, you look at my age, you check where, it's not me who decides to do all these things. It's God. Yeah. It's God. So, if I were to ask you a question now, to show that these are miracles, I asked one journalist yesterday, I said, because he was giving me tough questions, I asked him, I said, who is the mother of God? You see, who created? And then he did not. I said, it's a miracle on its own. So there are miracles that will bring confusion, but at the end of the day, they bring glory to the house of the Lord and to the nation as a whole.
Yeah. Prophet, if you really believe that you are able to heal people, why put them in danger? I mean, if you feel that God has given you the ability to heal people, why not just touch them the way that other prophets perhaps do that? Why not just put your hand on their forehead and put whatever you feel that you have inside them into them? Why endanger them? Why belittle your followers the way you are?
You see, I don't, I'm not saying this. Laying of hands is an elementary teaching, you see. It's elementary teaching. It means that you are limited, you see. And Paul comes and says, do not be quick to lay hands on, on people, you see. So some of the things, it's a practice that shows that God is alive. God can use, and most of the time we say, with God all things are possible, but we have not tested. One man have to rise among the nation. A young man have to rise and show the world that God can do it, and with God all things are possible.
Yeah. Prophet, we're running out of time, and I almost feel like I'm actually not getting anywhere here, because I think you believe in one thing, and yet the reaction to what you are doing has been immense, and people are very upset with the way that you're treating congregants. In terms of money, do people pay you to do this?
I can't get the question. You're saying?
The question is, do people pay you to heal them? Do they pay you to spray doom at them?
I am not a healer. They will never praise me. They praise God. I am not a healer. I am just a human being just like you.
But I don't spray doom at people. So I don't think we can compare ourselves to each other. So if you are just a human being and you're not a healer, then what are you doing?
It's an instruction from above. I am not alive. Christ is alive in me.
Prophet, we need to look further into this. Unfortunately, our time has run out. But does it fear you in any way that people are calling for your arrest? Do you worry? Does this worry you?
Hello?
Are you scared in any way that people are calling for your arrest due to this?
No, I'm not afraid. If I'm arrested for the gospel of Jesus Christ, I will enter in those cells and I will continue to do what the Lord has called me to do.
The Lord has called this man to do this. How do you decide when the Lord calls you? What is this? Leanne asked a pertinent question there, and we're asking you. Should we arrest this guy? Should we put him in jail? We put it to our viewers, to you, to South Africa at large. Should the prophet of doom be arrested? 259 votes are in now in the first hour, so people are all over this thing on social media, as you can imagine. And an overwhelming 80% say, yes, please arrest this man and set an example. You cannot say, the Spirit of the Lord has come into me, and now I find that I can heal people with doom. That is very difficult, and that's why we ask you the question of the day, which is at the heart of all of this. Where do we as a society draw the line with all religious practice, not just this, all religious practice? That's our question of the day. As you can see, people having doom sprayed in their eyes, in their faces, some sort of sprayed on their feet, and the like. Where do we draw the line? People have been eating snakes. People have been going out, grazing grass, and the like. We've had the CRL in with us before. We have them again with us this morning, Elvis, because this is a matter where it seems as if, this pastor's a young man, a 24-year-old man. It seems as if there's a competition to outdo the other churches in this kind of outrageous behavior.
And the question, of course, that comes from that, which we'll pose to the CRL in a short while, is, are these people registered? Where do they register themselves? And how do they become prophets? And prophets of doom, for that matter.
How do you become a prophet at 24 years old? You know, is it a self-styled thing? Do you, the living waters are stirring in me, so I'm a prophet? It's an interesting question, but I think you'll put that to the relevant people this morning.
Yes. So, you still have comments to go, or shall we start this conversation?
No, let's start the conversation, I think.
Now, the church has been dealt with another measure of faith, and this measure of faith this time is in the form of doom. Yesterday, a Limpopo-based prophet, unorthodox method of healing, he used that by spraying congregants with insecticide or doom that sparked an outcry on social media. Pictures emerged over the weekend on the Mount Zion General Assembly Church's Facebook page showing Rabalaho spraying his congregants with an insect killer. The country has been rocked by a wave of practices where church members have been subjected to unorthodox rituals to receive healing. In August 2015, the CRL Rights Commission undertook an investigation and a study into this practice of commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's belief systems. Now, we're joined in studio by the chair of the CRL, Toko Mkwanazi Kalusa. A very good morning to you, ma'am, and welcome.
Morning.
Are you shocked by what you've seen over the last couple of days?
I think I am shocked up to a point, but I think we've seen a whole range of things. In the past year, we've seen people being pelted with stones and boiling water poured over them. I think we've seen a lot of dangerous stuff happening.
Now, are you worried, but what seems to be a form of competition, we asked that question amongst each other just now, between myself and Evan, amongst pastors in this type of unconventional healing methods that they use?
I think they're using it partly as a marketing strategy. You see, we're all talking about this prophet and his doom. And he feels there's outdone the other ones who are feeding people snakes and grass and whatever and boiling water. I think it's getting more and more dangerous. Very soon, a lot of people will die as they try more and more complicated gimmicks in order for them to be seen to be doing something that is out of the ordinary.
Have you, as the CRL, already contacted this prophet and to make amends to see what can be done about this?
We're locating him in order to give him the summons for him to come and explain himself. But while we say that, we need to highlight to everybody that unless and until there's a legal framework with a peer review mechanism, this is not likely to stop. We need to have a mechanism whereby the senior people have their own peer review committee and they can look at the doctrine, whether spraying people with doom is a Christian doctrine. And when you say God said doom to me, and then I spray them with doom, whether that is acceptable in the Christian faith. And we need to be sensitive. There's belief issues, there are faith issues, and what we're proposing as the CRL, we feel it's the best solution for the country. And that's the only way when we'll bring dignity back to Christianity.
This regulatory framework that you're talking about, how far off are you from such a framework?
We were supposed to get feedback. We've tabled it as far as the sector is concerned. They've asked for an extension. They wanted June, and we said this is too urgent. We're giving them until end of February to make comments. Once they've commented and we've engaged them a little bit further, we're taking it to Parliament for Parliament to look at regulation.
Now, we're asking our listeners this morning whether or not this pastor, this prophet, should be jailed. What is your thoughts immediately on that? Or is that perhaps too harsh at this point in time?
You see, personally, I would love to see him jailed. But the police have told us over and over again that unless the congregants themselves complain, they cannot do anything. And we know, we've tried to talk to a whole range of them, they've refused, because they participate willingly. And that is the challenge. That's why we need a special kind of framework that will lead with people exploiting other people.
Now, since there is no framework as it stands right now, what can people or congregants, if they feel that they have been violated, what can they do at this point in time?
Oh, if they feel they've been violated, they can come to us. We're very much waiting and praying that even one of them will come and complain.
What do you think needs to be done in order to teach people about their religious rights and their beliefs and everything that should happen within a church or in a religious sector?
We have a two-pronged system. We're saying let's regulate so that senior religious leaders can guide the young ones, and if they can't be corrected, then they need to be removed. We're saying there must be a licensing issue, just like lawyers, just like doctors, just like everyone else. And then if you misbehave, the senior people in the religion will then say, no, we've tried and let's remove this one. That's number one, which we think will sort of stop them faster than anything else. But secondly, we feel there needs to be an education process. We've got our public education unit going around educating people. But when you're talking about faith issues, it's very difficult for people to understand when someone says, God said, the Holy Spirit said, for them to start evaluating. But we've been saying to congregants, learn to read the Bible yourself. Learn to know what is possible and what is so far-fetched. I've said this, as a fellow Christian, that God seems to be talking to them like more often than even in the Bible. Then, and we need to start evaluating that when someone says, no, God said I must do this, very soon God will say, go kill yourself. You won't die. Just, burn yourself, you'll survive. That's what God told me. We are in a dangerous situation. And as a nation, and I'm hoping religious leaders will feel our anxieties to say, this thing needs to be finalized and finalized soon.
Should all churches and young pastors like this particular one, 24 years old, be registered that that you can actually hold them to account?
We say there are laws in this country that already exist. For instance, if you're going to work with children, you need to be checked whether you're not on the child protection register. Are you not a sexual offender? Have you never been found guilty of fraud? Those are the basic things. But with the system as it is, you could be a pedophile and set up a church and be fiddling with children and no one will stop you. So we need to implement the laws that exist. And in order to do that, you need to be licensed so that you can then be verified and tested whether you're not a shady character that's going to be doing strange things to people.
Your advice finally, just in 15 seconds, to congregants or to people out there?
Be careful. We're saying to congregants, be careful. We're saying to religious leaders, let's push this thing through urgently. This is to protect your religious freedom, but also to protect the communities out there.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio. That is the chair of the CRR, the Rights Commission, Toko Mkhwanazi Kalusa. Now, there's lots of comments coming through, and of course you can participate in that poll. We're asking you, do you think that this pastor should be jailed? That's the first one, of course, and what do you make of all of this? Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. There is the poll, currently 281 votes, a number of votes in thus far. 81% of people, Madam Chair, are saying this pastor should be jailed, because we asked the question, or this prophet of doom, whether he should be arrested. 19% are saying no, and of course we also await your comments on the question. But let's continue this discussion with Eben.
Yeah, Elvis, very good morning to you. They say a lie's gone all around the world before the truth get a chance to put on its pants. That's where we are right now. The Lord spoke to me. How do you know that? How do you qualify this kind of thing even? Well, this story's gone around the world. I can tell you that in the last 24 hours. It's causing quite a stir, especially in markets like the UK and the like. These are the pictures of Prophet Letlebo of the Mount Zion General Assembly, who's been spraying doom on members of the congregation, if you've just joined us, all over social media, and as you can understand, causing quite a stir. To talk to us about this, Neo Motlong is SABC's multimedia producer. He's with us here in studio to talk about, well, the sensation really. No, it's a sensation now, isn't it?
It's a sensation. I mean, one day you wake up and it's all over social media and people are really talking about it. And as you can see, looking at the graph, those are the countries where it's actually trending. Besides South Africa, you have Argentina and parts of the UK and some European countries. People are using the hashtag doom. But there are other hashtags also that have been making rounds on social media. But this one is the main one.
The main one, it's over mainland Europe, pretty much all over Southern Africa, and even in South America. The prophet of doom. Is that what he's now called? The doom prophet, or the prophet of doom?
They're calling him the prophet of doom now because that's the hashtag that is put in traffic this morning. So names are changing. He's been dubbed so many names, but doom is the main one.
And what's the kind of general sentiment on social media right now? We're of course asking our viewers the question, should this guy be arrested? Because that's what came out of the previous show, Morning Live. You saw the segment with Leanne.
Yeah, there are mixed reactions, especially on social media, because people are calling that you cannot regulate social media, you cannot regulate Christianity or religion. But when you're looking at the numbers this morning, about over 300K accounts on Twitter have been reached, and over 433K impressions on social media. That is just people who are seeing this tweet on their timeline. And the numbers are growing as the day progresses.
And I saw lots of memes out there. What were some of the memes that you guys picked out for us?
There are a number of memes. I mean, there's this one where it's a starter pack actually for pastors as soon as it shows. There are different people who are talking about, there was one where someone was studying for their exams and they had the doom spray over it, like this one with the black card.
You spray your credit card, it could...
Right, and then your finances turn out well. And there are other ones that are really circulating. You had people like the Minister of Sports who was also tweeting, and there's this one also that is, it's a Christian song. It's also making rounds on social media.
Yeah.
We had Figile Mbalula also tweeting this. You had prominent people, and another one also making rounds on social media.
Well, interesting. Interesting. Neo, thanks for joining us. Thank you for coming and telling us what's going on. Of course, this is how the world now works. Neo is multimedia producer here at SABC News. Of course, you can interact with him on the sabc.co.za website with all the content that's available on this story and a whole host of others. Of course, we've got a lot of tweets coming in on our poll. Let's take a look at some of those tweets that you guys have been putting on. This one from Jobson Kuna says, Newsroom people must be arrested are the women who were the doom sprayed because they want to see miracles. Why women to all those dirty games? Miracles, desperate, I would think. Vulnerable, Mboni, is the thing. These are vulnerable, desperate people. I think that's what we need to understand. People are vulnerable and they're being abused. Tabo says, if it heals them, why arrest him? Well, Tabo's the problem, I think. Rangwane Marumo says, no, his congregation should be arrested for being so stupid to let him abuse them like that. Rangwane, what about vulnerability? These are vulnerable people. Tsepo Mohapi talks about, no, it's so stupid, go allow them, needs the hiding. There's no doom in the Bible. Siwa says, the doom prophet must be arrested, but because people are not insects. As simple as that. Doom prophet must fall. Shining light, says Newsroom, he should spend the whole of his miserable life in prison. That's what the poll we're running. More than 80% of the almost 300 people voting today say arrest this man. We need to make an example of this because it's a problem that's seemingly not going away. Now, of course, you know, you've seen this picture and many others doing the rounds. Let's have a look at what else is on, what the other hashtags are you should be looking at right now. Hashtag Doom Prophet, you see it on the screen now. As he's now been dubbed, there are many comments, jokes and memes about this. Yeah, just a couple of those. The Bible will hurt you with the truth, but it will never comfort you with a lie. Then this tweet from Mabuti says, fight ignorance, fight ignorance, fight ignorance. Lesego goes on, there's nothing wrong with what the pastor did. There's everything wrong with those who refuse to use their brains. And Somi says, I like how God is just exposing all the false prophets. Interesting. Now, let's move on from this news from next door. Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe announced his 2023 retirement. Yes, a very interesting one. It's caused a sensation, as you can imagine. In international news, the 7.3 magnitude Japan quake, which struck near Fukushima, has led to a tsunami warning there once again. The Fukushima nuclear plant staff have been asked to evacuate already there. The hashtag Pray for Japan is now starting to make the rounds. Then icy and foggy conditions in northeastern China are said to be the cause of the massive car pileup involving 52 vehicles. 52 vehicles there. 17 people are believed to have died. There you see the picture of that pileup now. An incredible 52 vehicles involved in that pileup in northern China. Now, the prophet of doom, of course, have been all over the news. Lots of prominent people have been taking to their phones to tell us what they think about this. Let's have a look at just some of the interesting tweets we picked up. This is from Mbaks, the Minister of Sport himself. He says they are giving a whole new meaning to the prophet of doom phrase. Yes, Mr. Minister, they sure are. Ryan Cummings, who's a soccer analyst, nothing humorous about the doom debacle. What I see is people in desperate need of being dehumanized in the name of God. Tragic. Yes, we have a lot of vulnerable people that are being preyed on. Mups goes on. Just when you think you've seen it all with snakes, nudity, petrol, grass, another passer accepts the ridiculous challenge, and now doom. Simple wow at the end there. That one from Mups Moponyani saying, well, what he thinks on the whole doom thing. Mark Lottering, of course, has had a field day with it. Mark says he's trying it on his hair, but nothing fell out, apparently. That was according to Mark Lottering. But, you know, everyone's going to have a field day with this one because it's so far out there on the ridiculous radar. Now, a picture of the day comes from Trippy at Vanessa Hot Mess, and it's captioned, I want to do my problems away. Wait, will die roach work? Is the pastor on Twitter? I need answers. Yeah, everyone's had a laugh. No, die roach doesn't work. You have to speak to the pastor directly, apparently. Of course, this is all in good spirits, as has been a lot of the conversation around this on social media. I think a lot of people battling to get their head around it. Let's take a look at our tweet of the day. This one from Anele Mdoda. And she says, I'm not concerned about the pastor who sprays doom in people's faces as much as I'm concerned about the people who allow it. Now, Vanessa, or it's Anela, unfortunately, we have many vulnerable people in South Africa. And we cannot blame them for their vulnerability. I think that is something we need to get our heads around. So let's take a quick look at what's happening in our courts today. We'll start in the Northwest Province, of course. We hope Zinde's son, Mark Barona Zindi, is expected to once again appear in the Brits Magistrates Court. Now, the 23-year-old is accused of murdering his mother at their home in Peakenwood Estate here in Hartbeespoort in June of this year. Then in Mafeking, where a man accused of 4 counts of rape, is expected to be sentenced in the Leuruje Regional Court there. Now, Fani Moatse of Nyatse village was accused of raping his sister's 3 children and their friend, who were aged between 9 and 12. Despite a complaint having been laid by the family, police could not arrest him. Then, down in the Western Cape, a former traffic department employee found with millions of rands is expected to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court today on corruption charges. Yes, Alton Abrahams allegedly issued clearance certificates for unroadworthy vehicles. He was arrested by the Hawks last week. They confiscated about 3.7 million rand in cash, as well as 2 vehicles. Abrams is a former traffic department employee. An interesting story. We'll keep you updated on all of these cases as they develop. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, well, we'll speak to the Commission, this time about issues around hair. Yes, the most emotive of topics in South Africa. So don't go away.
Celebrate the holidays at Macro with big festive season savings like a Johnny Walker 18-year-old Platinum Label Whiskey Gift Pack with 2 glasses, only 949, save 50 Rand. Johnny Walker Black Label Whiskey Gift Pack with 2 glasses, only 290, save 20 Rand. And Johnny Walker's best-selling Red Label Whiskey Gift Pack with 1 glass, only 180, save 20 Rand. Share in these and other big festive savings for home, for business, for life. Only at Macro, big on life.
Welcome back. 2 KwaZulu-Natal teens were excluded from school earlier this year because they refused to cut their hair for religious reasons. Now, they followed the Nazareth Baptist Church, popularly known as the Shembe Church, which does stipulate that a man's strength is in his hair and it cannot be cut. In recent weeks, there have been similar cases in KwaZulu-Natal where learners were kicked out of school for not cutting their hair. The question, though, is it legal to exclude a child from school based on religious or cultural reasons? Now, to find out, we are now joined by Toko Mkhwanazi Mkaluva, Chairperson of the Commission for Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, the CRL. It's a very long name that we normally have to say, but welcome once again back to this hot chair. What are your thoughts on pupils being excluded based on their out of school for not cutting their hair?
I think it's a huge problem because first and foremost, we expect that the school policies should be within a constitutional framework. Religious rights are guaranteed just as much as education is a right for learners. So when learners are being asked to choose between their religion and education, it's an unconstitutional imperative. But secondly, we have been talking to the department about this issue. We're talking to them from as early as August and September. We met with them and we told them this is unsustainable. You make sure that your employees don't harass learners, but also that they, educate them and teach them a bit about tolerance and that they should desist from doing this. It hasn't stopped. And, more and more teachers are now being more aggressive and it's exam time and learners' rights are being violated. So we've looked at this as the Civil Rights Commission, and what we're doing now is to prepare papers for the Equality Court to take the teachers' consent and the department that is supposed to be making sure that these things don't happen within their premises. And we're saying to them, the learners and their parents and the church, we are supporting them. We are friends of the court to say this is totally out of order and they cannot do this. And we feel, although the department has started moving now, it's too little too late. And we're saying there needs to be a court decision and some punitive measures put in place, because some of the kids have had to cut their hair. They're emotionally, spiritually traumatized because they wanted to write exams. And how good will your results be if you're already traumatized and you're writing exams having lost your religion and your belief and knowing that, you know, what you believe in has been violated?
When a pupil is excluded from school for not cutting their hair, what sort of recourse do they have?
You see, it's a very difficult thing, and we're saying there needs to be punitive measures. Some of the parents said we asked them to cut their hair because they couldn't stay away from school. And others, you know, their hair was cut halfway, and they were left with half-cut hair, and they were told, yeah, go like that, and then they had to finish the job at home. And all of those things are a violation, if not really an assault. You don't have a right to cut any children's hair. You are there to teach, not to be a barber shop. And we're saying all those cases, we're helping them to go to court. People must learn to respect the Constitution, and they must learn to respect the rights of the powerless learners and their families that they're exposed to.
Now, what does the law really say about excluding someone based on their religious beliefs?
It's illegal, it's unconstitutional. It's something you cannot do. But also, not just excluding them, denying them their right to education is totally, you know, unconstitutional and totally illegal.
Now, do you find that this happens in urban areas or more in rural areas where people's rights are being violated?
Funny enough, some townships in Durban, Kwamakuta, you know, Claremont, which is quite surprising. It shows the level of intolerance. And then, of course, in the rural areas. One wouldn't expect it in a township school, especially a Durban-based, you know, hip and happening area. But it's happening, and it shows that the religious intolerance is increasing, and people are more... You see, the issue is when they ask them to cut their hair, it's not just the school policy says.
Yes.
It's also, it's this church of yours. They're denigrating the church. If these people don't want you to cut your hair, let them open up their churches, and all sorts of other horrible things they say about the leadership of the Shembe Church.
Should school policies be changed, perhaps?
School policies need to be changed, and there's the Sarah Rights Commission. We've availed ourselves to say, if you want us to guide you in terms of religious and cultural imperatives, that should be in your policy. We're more than willing to assist.
And lastly, your message to teachers and as well as schools in terms of making sure that they do not exclude learners based on their cultural and religious beliefs.
We're saying to schools, do not do this. It's illegal, and we're monitoring tightly, and we're inviting anyone who feels that their rights have been violated to tell the Sarah Rights Commission so that we can investigate and make findings on these issues.
Well, that's where we got to leave it. Chairperson, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. Now, that, of course, was the chairperson of the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, Toko Mkonasi Kaluva, talking to us about the issue of excluding learners from school based on religious reasons. It's over now to Eben to continue the conversation and, of course, some of the comments that has been coming through.
Yeah, religious practice very much in the, of course, in the spotlight after the Prophet of Doom stole international headlines with this kind of picture that's gone around the world in 24 hours. So we asked you the question, where do we draw the line with religious practice? That's what we ask you. No, not the poll, not the poll. Thank you. The question of the day. So we've got some tweets on where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line with religious practice? This is our question, and these are your answers. Now, Ikona Naso says, Newsroom, there are too many prophet pastors in our country. It's lawlessness, no justice. Government should protect citizens from these cruel PROs, he says. Shafana Zulu Showe says, Newsroom, I think there is no need to draw the line about religious because the people, I believe in different things. Talk about doomed prophet. What do people die when you do these kinds of prophets? Calvin Moyo says, Newsroom, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Matthew 24, verse 11, Jesus Christ warns us people should study the word, he says. Now, we've got a couple of graphics that we're going to put up straight shortly to look at what the word says. Audrey says, Newsroom, I'm afraid this is just the beginning. Something must be done before people lose their lives. Audrey, that is what we are afraid of, that one. This one from Mabushi Khwete. He says, Newsroom, what I understand is that he did use doom on them without their consent. Without their consent or with their consent? What is it? They haven't gone to the police, apparently, so nothing can be done to this pastor at the moment. And here is the scripture now. Let's have a look. We looked into the Bible, and in Matthew 7, verse 15, it says, Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Then in Jeremiah 23, verse 16, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They will fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds, not from the mouth of the Lord. Amen today, Elvis.
John 4, verse 11 says, or verse 1 rather says, Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. That's the scripture for you.
So, do not listen to, this is the one I like. It says, do not listen to the prophets. There's so many prophets now. We have a prophet on every corner, it seems. They're prophesying to you. They fill you with false hopes. That's written in the great book. You don't have to follow the great book to see that. That's where we are. Let's quickly take a tour around the African continent and have a look at some of the stories on the rest of the world, rather, not the continent now. This is Europe, where the Times reports that drivers had to be rescued from their cars and homes. They were hit by flooding and power cuts as heavy rains followed Storm Angus there. Then in New York, the Financial Times says Brussels is proposing to tighten its grip over overseas banks operating in the EU in a tit-for-tat step against the US that will raise costs for big foreign lenders and potentially hurt the City of London after Brexit. Finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directed ministers and deputy ministers, mind you, earlier this week not to make direct contact with officials in the US President-elect Donald Trump's transition team in an apparent effort to prevent a proliferation of messages from Jerusalem to the new administration. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. We're going to take a short commercial break. We come back, we talk more hair and more religion. Don't go away.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the man who takes the party from zero to hero, from bland to grand, from average to, well, to way above average. The guy who toots the party train horn and says, all aboard! You are indeed a party comrade, and we salute you with a bottle of Chivas Regal 12-year-old blended Scotch whiskey, plus 2 glasses for just $279.99, exclusive to Tops at Spa.
Welcome back. You're watching News with me on SABC News. Now, discrimination at school on the grounds of hair has reared its ugly head once again. 13 schools in KwaZulu-Natal, well, they are accused of forcing pupils who are members of the Nazareth Baptist Church, forcing them to cut their hair. The church, popularly known as the Shembe Church, forbids members from cutting their hair. The matter first came to light when a 15-year-old grade 9 pupil from the Sicelo Setu High School in Ngwavuma complained to the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities. The Department of Education is now in trouble with the law after its teachers ignored Chapter 9 institution's order to stop discriminating against pupils belonging to the Shembe Church. Now, earlier this year, a Pretoria school, of course, was accused of racism for allegedly telling black girls to straighten their hair, not wear afros. Now, how do we show respect for the school's code of conduct without depriving learners of their right to respect and follow their religion and other associated practices? To talk about this, in studio this morning, Tandolweto Sipuye is a master's candidate and executive member of the Afrocentric Study Group at the University of Fort Hare. Tando, very good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Morning, thank you for having me.
Quick overview, religion and hair, should they ever mix?
Well, religion and hair do mix. In African spirituality, hair plays a very important role in actually really connecting our people with the universe, connecting with God, the divine, but also connecting with nature. And so, but also in Christianity as well. If you read in the Bible, there are stories of Samson, you read about the Nazarenes, you read about Jesus Christ, who also is always portrayed as having long hair. And so hair and religion do mix.
And what about Rastafari, this kind of religious practice? It's almost an even deeper spiritual pursuit, isn't it?
Well, in Rastafari is an expression of African spirituality, African religion, African culture. And so even in Rastafari, hair plays a very important role because hair actually carries ancestral memory and it carries our consciousness, our collective consciousness.
Why do you then think this attack on African hair and this idea that if you grow African hair, it cannot be neat?
You know, this comes from the histories of colonialism. You cannot see this just as a hair issue. It is connected to our broader histories of colonialism. It speaks to issues of our dispossession. It speaks to issues of the denigration of our culture, denigration of our spirituality, but also the erasure of our African identity as a people. And so that is really, what I think.
Is there a balance between what they call these schools' code of conduct that has to be respected and finding hair that's acceptable within this paradigm?
You know, the main issue here, for me, I want us not to focus this only on an issue of codes of conduct and just hair, but look at it in the broader histories, what this speaks to. This speaks to an issue of our people being subjected to a constant dehumanization, our people being constantly erased, and our people being undermined, you know, and subjected to codes of conduct that are colonial, that are really rooted in white colonial stereotypes about African people, our culture, our hair, and that sort of, even including our skin, for that matter, you know.
Now, we've seen, and the way forward, now we've seen in Cape Town, a school has come out, Westerford High School. It's a very, one of the well-to-do schools, if you can call it that, in Cape Town. They've now come out and they said, no more hair policies, as long as the hair is neat. Men can wear long hair, they can wear ponytails. Shouldn't that be the way forward for all schools in South Africa, where we abolish the kind of historical context we have with these hair policies and kind of chart a new way forward?
I think that should be the way. In going forward, we should really accept people as they are, as they come, because hair has nothing really to do with what you learn. It has nothing to do with the content that comes into your mind, you know, when you're studying and learning in the classroom. Yeah. And so really we should do away with those things because really they are rooted in really dehumanizing our people and continuing the very same colonial culture, colonial stereotypes.
Stereotype is what we have to fight in this case. Thank you, Tando, for coming in. He's a master's candidate and executive member of the Afrocentric Study Group at the University of Fort Hare. His name is Tandolweto Sipuye, and he's talking, well, he was talking to us about hair and, well, how deeply rooted oppression is in what we understand our hair to be. Now, of course, we've been asking you, we've been conducting a poll today. Should the prophet of doom be jailed? Yes, we all know the prophet of doom by now. Now, we've got 329 votes on. 81% say yes, lock him up, put him in prison. Well, he can only be put in prison if there's a complaint against him. And right now, none of the congregation, none of the members of that congregation have even bothered to lay a charge. So let's have a look at some of your comments. Mboni Jobson says, People who must be arrested are the women who were doom sprayed because they want to see miracles. Why women, all those dirty gays? And Bonnie, there were men who were sprayed as well in this instance. I don't think it's a man-woman thing, my brother. Thabo Mosala says, Newsroom, if it heals them, why arrest him? What about the ones that are not apparently healed? Rangwane Marumo says, no, his congregation should be arrested for being so stupid to let him abuse them like that. We have very vulnerable people in South Africa, many vulnerable communities that it's very easy to abuse the vulnerable. Seppo says, Newsroom, no, it's those stupid people allowed to be sprayed that needs a hiding. There's no doom in the Bible. We can't just dish out hiding left, right and center, Seppo. Those days are over, my friend. People are vulnerable in society at large. The doom prophet must be arrested because people are not the insects. That one from Siwa Piwe, who says, simple, people are not insects. Of course, another big uproar right now is around South African cricket captain Faf du Plessis. He's locked in a closed-door ICC hearing right now on allegations that he tampered with a ball in the second test against Australia in Hobart. There you see the lolly incident on screen right now. Now arriving at the venue for the third test. Of course, it's a dead rubber in Adelaide, but it is going, well, it's going to be a day-night affair, so it is very, very an interesting match ahead of us. Kendall Mahamati is here.
Yeah.
Kendall, just give us a quick overview, my friend.
100%. And really, the focus has shifted from this day-night test. It's historic. You know, it's out in Adelaide. First time that two heavyweights of the game are going to be playing a day-night test with the pink ball. It's been looked forward to for a long time. It's now on the outcome of the hearing that's actually happening for somewhat close to the Adelaide Oval right now to find out whether Faf was actually tampering with the ball or not. Now, what we're looking at right now are pictures of some of the uproar leading up to this morning that happened at the Adelaide airport. And really, it's a case of do we in South Africa, do we...
this is this dodgy behavior on this guy. This guy represents Channel 9. Now, they're an official broadcaster. They've been told no comment 3 times by the South African, officially and by word of mouth. This is my job. I've done this job for 25 years. You don't do that. You do not do that if you're a host broadcaster. It is unethical behavior. But then again, it's Australia, and they just got a big hiding.
One needs to remember that the ethics that we operate with here in South Africa are not necessarily followed by people out in Australia.
All around the world.
I think these guys are just out to get a story.
Listen, journalistic ethics is the same. You works for Channel 9. They are the host broadcaster of the cricket. You are the South African cricket team and Cricket South Africa. So the official word goes out. It's a simple thing, Kendall. It's not even a discussion.
You wait for the presser.
Sub judice. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
It means you can't talk about a legal matter while it is being heard, which is where Faf is today.
And what these guys are doing,
if that message goes out to
a get a story. They're trying to get a story, and what happens?
Listen, if he was some other tabloid, yes, but he represents the host broadcaster in this matter, my friend.
No, it's exactly why we're talking about them right now, and that's literally what the point is about. They've taken the focus away from the fact that they're about to get a 3-0, like a 3-0 whitewashing.
No, they're not. They tried to take the focus away, but when we give them a good old pumping over the weekend, we'll remind them when we leave Australia, just politely, that they are the worst bunch that we faced in the last 100 years, and goodbye, because that's just unbelievable behavior.
We're all looking forward to the outcome of the hearing to see what happens, whether Faf will be able to play in this test or not. And we're also looking forward to actually discussing this win by the Proteas.
Thank you very much. Kendall Mahamati is with us here on the Newsroom show. He's doing the sport at 10:40. Don't go away. We've got headlines coming up, a couple of minutes at the top of the hour. The whole cricket thing, sour sweets. That's what Hashim Amla called it. I agree.
What is a national anthem and why do we need national anthems?
A national anthem becomes an instrument to foster social cohesion, identity, to create a sense of identity of a country.
It does happen that people feel that they cannot commit to what the national anthem does.
Unity is not formed from the sky. People don't just despise the national anthem. But it is because of certain things that are actually happening. The issue of languages, for instance. The issue of apartheid statues and monuments.
Welcome back. Very good morning to you on the Newsroom show. Yes, it's just gone 10 o'clock. Time for us to give you an update from the world of news. Of course, we'll be live until 12 o'clock today. I'm with Kendall Mahamati. Kendall's on the sports desk over here in the back corner. He'll be giving us an update shortly. But of course, our focus today has been on the prophet of doom and what's been going on. Yes, spraying doom aerosol onto the faces of congregants in order to heal them. So we asked, well, we've been running a poll actually. First up, on the back of an interview with Leanne a little bit earlier. Should the prophet of doom be arrested? That's what we're asking you. 339 votes coming. It's in now. I'm surprised that 20% of people are showing support to this kind of behavior. Should the prophet of doom be arrested? 80% of 339 voters are saying, yes, arrest this man. Of course, we've also been running a question. And the question we've been asking you is, where do we draw the line with religious practice? It seems as if it's a little bit of a free-for-all in South Africa at the moment. Here are some of your tweets with regards to where we draw the line with practice. Gail Dunn says, God is not mocked. Doom prophet. She goes on. Absolutely, deception in the highest degree. I don't quite understand in what context this is. Of course, our question is, beware of, this one from Vimal, he says, beware of false prophets. They are in sheep's clothing, but inwardly ravenous wolves. Now, these questions have been, they've been mixed up totally, so it kind of loses a little bit of sense. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets and shall show great signs and wonders, says Ruth. Now, we've mixed it up, unfortunately. We've mixed up the questions. Let's move on and try and get to our headlines, news headlines this morning. The African Christian Democratic Party is considering legal action against the self-styled prophets who abuse their congregations. Meanwhile, the ANC and its veterans have agreed to convene a follow-up meeting to resolve all outstanding issues. Meanwhile, COSATU's three-day Central Executive Committee meeting continues today. Yeah, we'll keep you updated on those stories as they develop here throughout the morning. But let's go to Kendall now for our first look at the top sports news of the day.
100%. Thank you very much, Evan. It's going to be a very interesting morning this morning. We all know that we're all waiting to find out what's happening with FAF, but we also have a whole lot of other things on the go this particular morning. Good morning to you. This is what's happening in the sports today.
We have enough quality to win the game, so I think it's all up to us in the day to get the 3 points.
Kaizer Chiefs are eager to get back to winning ways in this week's round of upset premiership fixtures. And Mamelodi Sundowns' Klompo Kikan is shortlisted for FIFA's Best Goal for 2016 award, the famed Puskás Award. All this as Proteas captain Faf du Plessis finds out his fate today in a closed-door ICC hearing and his alleged tampering with the ball in the second test against Australia. All this and more we've got for you in the Sports Bulletin about 10:40 or so. For now, it is back to Eben, who's got the news.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. Very good morning to you. If you've just joined us now, we'll go to a new top story. The South African government has carried out its decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The ICC set up as a court of last resort to prosecute crimes against humanity. He's accused of racism for focusing on African crimes. South Africa's decision followed a dispute last year when Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir visited the country despite being the subject of an ICC arrest warrant over alleged war crimes. Gambia and Burundi have also announced their withdrawal from the ICC, blaming the Hague-based tribunal for the persecution and humiliation of people of color, especially Africans. Namibia and Kenya have also raised the possibility of withdrawing from the court. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree to withdraw Russia from the ICC. Putin's decree came a day after the UN General Assembly's Human Rights Committee approved a resolution condemning Russia's temporary occupation of Crimea and blamed Moscow for rights abuses and discrimination against some Crimean residents. Yeah, the Russian President Vladimir Putin signed that decree to withdraw Russia from the ICC. The ICC, of course, was established in 1998 and has over 100 member states, and it aims to prosecute against war crimes, genocide and crimes against humanity. Amnesty International released a statement saying that Russia's withdrawal is a huge blow to international justice. Just hours before Russia's announcement, the UN Human Rights Chief called on countries not to leave the Rome Statute. Earlier this year, of course, South Africa, Burundi, Gambia and Malawi also filed formal plans to leave the world body. I'm joined now from our Pretoria studio by the Russian ambassador to South Africa, Mr. Mikhail Ivanovich Petrakov. A very good morning to you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for being with us on Newsroom today.
Good morning, and thank you for granting me this opportunity to talk to our viewers on important international issues.
The announcement by President Putin to withdraw from the ICC, just give us a little bit of background that maybe sits outside of South Africa's context.
Let me start with saying that Russia has been consistently advocating prosecuting those responsible for most serious international crimes. Our country was at the origins of the Nuremberg and Tokyo tribunals and participated in the development of fundamental documents on the fight against genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes. That was the reason why Russia voted for the adoption of the Rome Statute and signed it in the year 2000. The ICC, as the first permanent body of international criminal justice, actually inspired high hopes of the international community. Unfortunately, the court failed to meet the expectations to become a truly independent, authoritative international tribunal. Views to that effect on its inefficiency and one-sided approach were voiced in different fora, including United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council. It is also worth noting that during 14 years of the court's work, it passed only 4 sentences, having spent over $1 billion. Now, on the particular issues the Russian Federation has with the court, I would like first to stress that we cannot be indifferent to the court's attitude vis-à-vis the situation of August 2008. When the Saakashvili regime of Georgia launched an attack on the peaceful city of Tshinval, the principal city of South Ossetia, killing dozens of Russian peacekeepers and numerous civilians there. And it was established internationally by independent international observers that it was the then President Saakashvili who started the hostilities. However, when it came to the court, the assassination of the Russian peacekeepers resulted in the court's accusations against South Ossetian militia and Russian soldiers. The eventual investigations of actions and orders of Georgian officials was left to the discretion of the Georgian justice and remains outside of the focus of the ICC prosecutor's office attention. This development speaks for itself. The second issue, you've mentioned the Crimea here. And we see the attempts by the court representatives to present the events in Crimea and in Donbass as a military conflict between Ukraine and Russia, which totally contradicts the reality, because the issue in question is the internal Ukrainian conflict. As for the Crimea, I should remind that the position of the court also contradicts the position of the people of Crimea, who had a referendum where they voted in favor of going out of Ukraine and joining the Russian Federation. And mind you, over 90% of those who voted, and it was about 86% of the voters, voted in favor of joining the Russian Federation. To wrap it up, when we look at the court's action from the Russian perspective and when we analyze its attitudes and position, we see that we can hardly trust the ICC. In this regard, the démarche of the African Union, which has decided to develop measures on a coordinated withdrawal of African states from the Rome Statute, is understandable. And as you yourself have mentioned, some of the states are already conducting these procedures.
I wanted to ask you about Africa and South Africa's stance, in particular with regards to the ICC and the kind of backstory that we've seen about African heads of state often being persecuted by the ICC when we see other crimes against humanity, things that happen in Iraq and weapons of mass destruction and the like, go unlooked at, despite the fact that we have that these countries are outside, of course, signatories of the Rome Statute. But how do you view what's happening with South Africa and on the African continent?
To my knowledge, the attempts to bring different cases to the court's attention were coming from 139 countries. And it is only 8 countries, and all of them are African countries, from which the suspects or convicts are there in the court. The issue of being part or not being part of an international structure or of international legal instrument is the issue belonging to the domain of sovereign rights of each and every country. So if a country decides that being a part of, in this case, International Criminal Court is not in her national interests, like it was in the case of Russia, then it's up to the country to realize its sovereign rights.
Mr. Ambassador, in conclusion, international justice is now, of course, under the spotlight because of this. In Russia, how do you believe we ensure international justice going forward?
Well, of course, there are different instruments to that effect, and the work of these instruments should be based not on a one-sided approach, but on the principle of objectivity and on the principle of justice. This is the way forward.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us today on the Newsroom show. That is the Russian ambassador here to South Africa, Mikhail Ivanovich Petrakov, joining us from the capital, Pretoria, talking about why Russia have now also decided to leave the International Criminal Court, or, well, withdraw from the Rome Statute, as it were. We move on to news stories that have been very much in the news the last day. Of course, the ANC and its 101 veterans, they've agreed to convene a follow-up meeting now to resolve all outstanding issues. The governing party's National Working Committee met the veterans in Pretoria yesterday to discuss their concerns around the state of the ANC and also the country.
The public spat between the ANC and its veterans, who have recently been outspoken against allegations of corruption plaguing the party's leadership. They raised concerns about the moral compass of the current leadership following the loss of major metros in the August local government elections. Finally, President and the NWC members, under one roof, have struggled stalwarts. Despite earlier dismissing the stalwarts, the ANC is now singing a different tune.
We're trying to meet as soon as possible. We're suggesting Friday this week. They are conferring. They will come back to us so that we conclude these issues as soon as possible.
We have agreed that we'll be guided by the culture, tradition, and values of the ANC. And that is extremely important for us to understand that. And as SG said, we had very robust discussions. There were difficult moments. We will address them. There were issues, also many issues that we agreed upon. And therefore, we are guided by the President when he said we should meet so that by the time December ends, we've resolved some of the issues that were outstanding.
The meeting comes a year before the ANC selective conference.
The much-awaited meeting between the ANC veterans and the party leadership finally taking place here. Montlengane Dipoko, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, speaking a little bit earlier on Morning Live, the ANC's Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, says the meeting with the veterans yesterday was very fruitful and that they will continue to engage with them.
This meeting was probably one of the best things that has happened to the ANC in a long time because it consolidated the values of the ANC in one space where people were able to speak very openly about their concerns. We haven't had an opportunity to engage very deeply. There wasn't enough time, and we've agreed to continue with the discussion. But the entire NWC of the ANC was present, as well as about 45 veterans, stalwarts and veterans of the ANC. Primarily, the discussion verged on the fact that the veterans felt that there need to be a strengthening of the ANC and that the values of the ANC need to be re-inculcated. There was disappointment about the leadership's lack of implementing decisions of the National General Council, looking at questions of, obviously the top of mind issue for them is this broad perspective of an ANC that is a corrupt ANC.
Yeah.
Moving on, building strong COSATU unions and finding solutions to the socio-economic challenges facing the country will dominate the Federation's three-day Central Executive Committee meeting. Now, this meeting began in Johannesburg yesterday and continues today into tomorrow.
COSATU's crucial Central Executive Committee meeting, it seeks to discuss various issues facing the Federation, its strengths and weaknesses, and also plans to find ways of strengthening its affiliates.
We are going to look into the politics of our country. How do we strengthen the ANC? How do we strengthen the SACP, COSATU and SANCO as our allies in the political landscape? And of course, issues would have been raised relating to the president of the ANC or the ANC. Definitely COSATU as part of the alliance will have a view on those issues.
The of the state capture report has also created instability within the Federation and its alliances. Two of its unions, NAHAO and the Communication Workers Union, are calling on the president to step down immediately. This will also be a priority in its discussions.
Remember last CEC in August, we said our unions are not prevented from talking within their own structures about these matters. So we'll hear then what happens. As to whether people have made these pronouncements or not, it becomes irrelevant when a COSATU view has been discussed and agreed upon.
The Federation has welcomed the proposed minimum wage of 3,500 Rand, but says it would have preferred an amount of between 4,500 Rand and 5,300 Rand a month. As COSATU's meeting gets underway, the ANC and its veterans have also met. This gives an indication that the ANC and its alliance partners are facing challenges, and this might have an impact on the party going forward. Mbali Sibanyoni, SABC News, Braamfontein.
There's been mixed reaction to the proposed new national minimum wage. More than 51% of South Africans currently live on less than 1,000 Rand a month. But what do people on the street have to say about this?
Thulasizwe Mdadambane, a security guard in one of Johannesburg's leafy suburbs.
Which unit are you visiting?
But his monthly earnings of a little over 3,000 rand are simply not enough to help make ends meet. If you tally his responsibilities per month, he has nothing left. Thulasizwe feels that NEDLAC's proposed national minimum wage of 3,500 rand, the hourly rate set at 20 rand, is just too low.
You are not left with money to do anything out of the basic stuff, so you can only cover your basic needs, that's shelter, food and accommodation.
A normal working class household in South Africa, on average, will need something like 12,500 rands. However, if government proceeds with 3,500 rands, it will mean that government will have to cover the cost of housing, the cost of education, decent education, the cost of healthcare, through the NHI perhaps, and all the other amenities.
While South Africans are now called on to debate the proposed figure before it's finalized, Thulasizwe is among those who believe he is not going to be much better off. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Management at the Tshwane University of Technology says that students successfully completed 2 exam sessions yesterday following attempted disruptions from a group of students who were opposing the exams. Buses ferrying students to the Tshwane Event Centre where the exams took place were escorted by police.
Barricading roads to prevent buses from accessing campuses as some students call for exams to be postponed. They say it will be suicidal for them to sit for exams whilst unprepared.
We want to be given a time to prepare for the exams, not the issue of the people just coming and decide on our behalf. We are the one who decide for our future.
Yesterday, this bus was torched, allegedly by a group of disgruntled students demanding the suspension of exams until next year.
What we try to do now is to say to the police, please go and escort our buses from the depot to Soshanguve, which they did. And then almost 19 buses were transported from Soshanguve to the showground where the exam is taking place. And then all our students were sitting in the examination uninterrupted. They wrote the exam peacefully throughout this first session.
Mokola says it's only a small group that is disrupting the exam process. He says the institution has asked for tight security at both campuses as well as the exam center. Students who are writing exams are being transported by buses under police escort. Mlimo Nemoto, SABC News, Soshanguve.
Moving further afield now, the international day to eliminate violence against women, November 25th. Yes, that's still to come. Later this week, it was commemorated at the United Nations with calls for adequate funding to realize Goal 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals. The goal aims to achieve gender equality and empowerment of women and girls by the year 2030, with targets to eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres. Now, Friday coming, which falls during the Thanksgiving weekend in the United States, also sees the launch of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign as the focus shifts from rhetoric to sustainable financing towards the fulfillment of this 2030 agenda.
The cast of the Broadway musical The Color Purple in a performance of Hell No as the perfect response to violence against women and girls that also requires adequate funding.
No! These efforts are chronically underfunded. I call on governments to show their commitment by dramatically increasing national spending in relevant areas, including in support of women's movements and civil society organizations. I also encourage world leaders to contribute to UN Women and to the UN Trust Fund to end violence against women. We look as well to the private sector, philanthropists, and concerned citizens to do their part.
Under the Orange the World umbrella that reflects a bright and bold symbol of the future women want, the UN is now shifting its messaging towards adequate resourcing to back up existing international commitments.
Even relatively small-scale investment can bring enormous benefits to women and girls and to their wider communities. The issue of violence against women is complex, and it needs comprehensive response, and that includes investment and resources. There are encouraging signs of countries that are fighting with everything they have. In Uganda, a community program to change social norms resulted in 52% reduction in intimate partner violence. And we are hoping to see more of these efforts in many of our countries and communities.
With the aim of bending the violence against women curve downwards towards its ultimate demise.
So despite its positive framework on women's equality and empowerment, the SDGs are still severely lacking in funding and resources. And like other developmental commitments, be they on climate change, universal healthcare, or quality education and so forth, it comes down to financial backing if women and girls are to see the requisite progress that will have a positive ripple effect on societies as we know them. Sherwin Bryce-Bees, SABC News, New York.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the man who takes the party from zero to hero, from bland to grand, from average to, well, to way above average. The guy who toots the party train horn and says, "All aboard!" You are indeed a party comrade, and we salute you with a bottle of Chivas Regal 12-year-old blended Scotch whiskey, plus 2 glasses for just $279.99, exclusive to Tops at Spa.
Give me that paperwork.
Where is your
Give me that paperwork.
Where is your paperwork?
Like I'm everything, I don't know what's going on. Suddenly I'm locked up.
This is not fair, Santa Tosiesan. Not fair.
Kuputse rent ka 200. Hape se kupula ka 200. O re ngwana, o i-1. 150, 150 plus koloi. Leon, let me in another one, 150.
I'm just the one to lock you out.
Yes,
I
that's
have
one
the
to lock
keys.
me then out.
You are starting gangsterism. No! No!
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, the global public health crisis of antibiotic resistance is very much in the spotlight right now. What's at stake is the impending loss of antibiotics that threatens modern medicine as we know it. There's been a dramatic increase in multi-drug resistant bacteria in the last couple of years alone. This is happening in our communities with examples such as gonorrhea and in hospitals where some superbugs are now virtually, or in some cases completely, untreatable. Right now, more than 700,000 people die each year from resistant infections. Does the kind of food that people consume contribute to people being antibiotic resistant? Now, to find out a little bit more around this, we are joined by Professor Mark Mendelsohn. He's a professor of infectious diseases at the University of Cape Town. He's also the chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Antimicrobial Resistance. Prof, very good morning to you. Thank you for being with us on Newsroom today.
Good morning, Eben, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about this important problem.
Where are we in South Africa right now with the problem of antibiotic resistance? So are the red lights flashing?
The red lights are very definitely flashing, not only in South Africa, but in internationally. This is a global problem. we're basically seeing the entry into a post-antibiotic era where the threat is that we will lose antibiotics against common infections and bacterial infections. We're talking about pneumonias, we're talking about meningitis, genitourinary infections, and really what we're seeing is this increase in multi-drug resistant infections, which are either untreatable, starting to become untreatable, or we're having to use the last line of antibiotics.
What about the food that we eat day to day? How does that contribute to this antibiotic resistance problem that we're seeing?
Well, the food that we eat itself doesn't itself contribute, although one has to understand that antibiotic resistance is driven by the use of antibiotics. And that's the same for humans as it is for animals. So when animals are produced for food, when they get antibiotics, the bacteria in those animals can themselves select out antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So it increases the population of bacteria in those foods that are resistant to antibiotics. And those can be transferred into the human population. But it would be wholly wrong to suggest that the main problem is one of antibiotic use in animals. That is part of the problem. It's part of a One Health issue. But it's our misuse and overuse of antibiotics in humans that is really driving the problems that we're seeing. It has to be remembered that antibiotics are only active against bacteria. They have no activity against viruses such as the common cold. We know that antibiotics are abused for many, many illnesses, and symptoms, including just general aches and pains. We have to get this important point across that antibiotics should only be used for bacterial infections. And if we can do that, we can start to address the issue that we're now facing.
That all said, at GP level, are we over-prescribing antibiotics at GP level only? And is that also, as you say, part of the problem?
Absolutely, but this is not just an issue for the GPs. This is an issue for all prescribers, both in the community and in the hospitals, in human health and in animal health. So this is not just an issue of the GPs, it's not just an issue in private medicine, it's an issue across the board. And we are, as doctors and nurses and prescribers, we are failing the public in that respect, that we are prescribing antibiotics when they are not necessary. And the reasons behind that are multifactorial. But this is a partnership, and South Africans need to wake up to this issue. And we also, as the general public, need to understand this rising antibiotic resistance and what's driving it, so that when we do have a common cold or aches and pains, we go for just symptomatic treatment. We go for painkillers, for decongestants, for our nose, etc. We don't turn to antibiotics. The more antibiotics we use, the more we drive this increasing resistance. And we will and are losing antibiotics for those patients that actually need them.
The way forward for us then, not just in South Africa, but the world. Have we seen any new antibiotics being developed, for instance, in recent times that can deal with this problem? Or is it a scenario that we're going to have to learn to live with less?
Well, there is definitely has been a void of new antibiotic molecules, new antibiotic classes, really in the last 28 years. But the good news on that front is that there is an international push now to reignite research and development on antibiotics. But those antibiotics are not going to be coming our way anytime soon. So we have to actually focus on conservation. But as you say, this is an international problem. It's been highlighted at the very highest level. Indeed, in September this year, the United Nations General Assembly held for only the 4th time a high-level meeting of heads of state around a health topic, and this was around antibiotic resistance. The World Health Organization and its partners in food and animal health, the Tripartite Alliance, have put forward a global action plan, which every country has to have a strategy in its own national action plan. In South Africa, we're already, thankfully, on our way. We have a national strategy published. We have an implementation plan in place. We're working on a practical guide for all levels of the country. And the national government, National Department of Health through the Minister and the Director General are really leading this, including not only in the country but internationally. And one has to recognize that, along with the stakeholders on the ground at the coalface, in particular the South African Antibiotic Stewardship Program, which is driving implementation and change both in human and in animal health. So there's a lot of work being done, but it's absolutely vital that the public get on board and we start having more and more conversations about this so that we can move towards the same situation as we see in some Northern European countries, for example, where there is very little antibiotic resistance because there's very little antibiotic use. So if you want an antibiotic in the future when you need it, you need to think about the times that you don't need it, and we don't use antibiotics when they're not indicated.
Prof, thank you very much for joining us today and putting us very much in the picture. Yes, we're using too many antibiotics and too easy to take it over the counter and shove it down our throats. In the long run, it is a horrible thing to do. That was Professor Mark Mendelson, who came to you live from Cape Town. He's a professor of infectious diseases and the chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Antimicrobial Resistance. And of course, we were talking about more and more people becoming antibiotic resistant, losing 700,000 people every year. Now, tough times lie ahead for consumers this festive season as food prices continue to rise, yes? And the next month you'll see more of that. Among many factors being blamed for the spike in prices, of course, is the drought. Now, some basic food items have recorded double-digit inflation, forcing particularly poorer people to spend their disposable income mainly on food. As if this is not enough, the price of petrol, price of diesel went up by 45 and 63 cents a litre as well. Now, from the Studies in Poverty and Inequality Institute, we spoke to Nkateko Chauke, who is a basic needs basket coordinator, about what people need to think about.
The drought that has hit South Africa since 2015, last year, up until now, we have seen, respectively, through the project that we work on at the Studies in Poverty and Inequality Institute, where we monitor the prices of food, particularly items that are deemed necessary for poor households and which are consumed on a frequent basis by poor households. And what we've seen is that there is a sharp increase in mainly staple foods as well, including the prices of maize, which are hiking continuously. I mean, taking into consideration the fact that the Reserve Bank Governor, Mr. Kganyago, announced earlier this year that South Africa's economy is predicted at 0% increase until the end of the year. So seeing this also, it has a ripple effect on the economy, on the markets, especially on food security for the poor. And more we're seeing that people are actually paying more or spending a third of their disposable income on food alone. And this places a lot of stress on households that are particularly poor or live in informal settings as well. Looking at the fact that they are unable to contribute to the economy equally, their spending power also is decreasing as the time goes. So poor households are hardest hit by the drought, the increasing prices of food as well, and looking at the fact that the more money they have, they're spending it continuously on more food, and the less income they have to spend on other needs as well, to ensure that they at least live a decent and adequate standard of living.
No, we're all consumers, and we speak to our viewers. They tweet us and they tell us, and the one thing that everyone kind of has a been in bonnet about is the price of food goes up when conditions are difficult, but they don't come down when conditions, or down sufficiently as conditions improve. Is this something that is a major concern for you at the Poverty and Inequality Institute?
Yes, of course. I mean, we look at a variety of issues that affect people's ability to lead a decent standard of life. And one of those is the fact that we call for even government subsidies and government assistance programs such as social protection should be inflation indexed to allow people to actually match the prices that are continuing to hike. Looking at the fact more placed regionally is that South Africa actually provides 40% of wheat to the rest of the Southern African region. And so we are faced with a situation where demand is increasing at a faster rate than we are prepared for. And many a times is the fact that what we should learn as a country is that we should rather prepare in advance than react to a situation as it happens. So there's a need really for concerted efforts from business partners or business communities as well as government in ensuring that food security doesn't continue to be an alarming situation in the country.
Now, we've done some projections with Statistics South Africa, and the one thing that stood out for us in the projections we've done is the difference between selected food items in rural areas compared to urban areas, and that in rural areas people are paying a little bit more for basic items like tea, for instance. A normal, what we call Ceylon tea or black tea for that matter, is almost double the price in rural areas compared to urban areas. Are you worried about that sort of thing?
I mean, it's worrying. Look, with our project, what we do is that we monitor the prices of food and non-food items across the 9 provinces of the country. And yes, we do see these discrepancies coming out where we have urban areas, such as in Johannesburg, we have lesser prices than you would have in Eastern Cape, your rural Lusikisiki villages. And really, it happens with the market share, firstly, and also the ability or the impact that this has on communities in terms of their spending power as well. I mean, considering the fact that in Eastern Cape, villages such as Lusikisiki, for instance, the staple food there is samp. And as prices increase, we are getting samp here at a lower price because demand is relatively low and much higher in the Eastern Cape. So I guess those are the type of the dynamics that are playing out within the economy, which calls for institutions or legislative measures that are taken by the government, such as maybe introducing a National Food Act that would then regulate all of these issues that are arising in the different provinces of the country.
That sounds like common sense. Let's hope it happens. But I want to talk to you, before we wrap up, I want to talk about the consumer, the heavily indebted South African consumer who we know who doesn't save, who spends their money not always very wisely. The outlook for them this festive season and going forward, what should they be thinking about?
I mean, firstly, I would like to start with addressing the fact that our economy is faced with a lot of structural problems. Our country itself is faced with crippling levels of poverty and inequality, most of which, as I've mentioned now, are very structural. And of course, allow for that environment for the consumer to be heavily indebted. So the more you spend, you are spending on immediate needs. And it doesn't give or leave enough room for you to be able to save, at least thinking ahead, moving forward. And so looking at the festive season, people are hyped up, psyched with the festive season, the fact that bonuses are coming through, yet our economy allows us to continuously be trapped in a cyclical environment of debt, poverty, inequality. And therefore, concerted efforts, I mean, looking at the drought as well now, is the fact that we really need to stress on government accelerating, implementing the National Development Plan proposals to make use of unused land, to actually meet the demand, to actually allow people to participate in the economy competitively, as well as looking forwardly on saving money and enabling the economy to work itself.
It's one thing to always look at government and what they are doing, but the reality in Nkateko is that we have to, as consumers, think twice now before spending the money that we don't have, isn't it?
Of course. Yes. I mean, many a times, I mean, I'd say for myself even, is the fact that before spending, I have to think, firstly, is food available? And then I can only spend on the other basic necessities that I would want. But looking at the levels of poverty that people are in, sometimes just facing the facts is that people do not have a choice. And what they actually do is try to survive for the moment. And that's why we're saying that poor people find themselves paying or using or spending a third of their disposable income just on food. So I mean, people have to think twice before spending, yes, but I mean, people are really desperate in the country right now. And it's time that we also encourage people in terms of what it is that they should do moving forward. How is the government reacting with food subsidies, for instance, to help those who cannot help themselves at this point in time?
It's Black Friday weekend at Macro with hundreds of deals that are too big for Friday only. Get the Terrace Leisure Saturn 590 4-burner gas braai, only 2,999. Save 2,000 rand. A Hisense 220-litre fridge with top freezer, only 1,899. Save 900 rand. And the LG 55-inch smart UHD LED TV for 9,999. Save 3,000 rand. Don't miss Macro's Black Friday weekend. This Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Save up to 45% on selected in-store and online deals. Macro. Big on life.
The proceedings of the Fees Commission has once again been disrupted.
We as a university do not feel that fee-free higher education currently is feasible.
It's a Mickey Mouse commission. During in the commission, student grievances. We're not a part of the commission in the program. So that is why we tend to disturb the program.
If you tell me that I can't leave, then you are keeping me hostage.
Some students demanded that UCT lift the suspensions and expulsions of certain students.
Welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamate and I've got your sports news. Now, the story that's been on the top of mind for everybody this morning, the ball tampering hearing of interim South African cricket captain Faf du Plessis has taken place in Adelaide this morning, South African time. The hearing, chaired by match referee Andy Pycroft, lasted close to 3 hours. Du Plessis stood accused of breaching the International Cricket Council's Code of Conduct, which relates to changing the condition of the ball during a match. Early indications are that he'll probably not be banned, but get fined a portion of his match fee instead. He's also expected to be allowed to take part in the historic pink ball test starting on Thursday.
4 overs. That could be it. Yes, it is. South Africa have wrapped up the second test match.
A bittersweet victory. South Africa clinched the test series in Australia in emphatic fashion last week. They beat the home side by an innings and 80 runs in the second test in Hobart. But shortly thereafter, footage emerged of du Plessis allegedly using a mint to doctor the ball. The ICC investigated the incident. The Proteas called in legal assistance and closed ranks around their skipper. The saga is major news, locally and in Australia. Despite indicating that they won't comment on the matter for now, an Australian media outlet has been accused of harassing du Plessis. This after an altercation at the Adelaide airport involving a Channel 9 news reporter on Monday. Pending the outcome of the hearing, du Plessis will likely captain the side in the third test against the Aussies. The pink ball clash is scheduled to start in Adelaide on Thursday. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Now, Springbok lock Kevin Etzebeth will not be considered for Saturday's rugby test match against Wales in Cardiff on Saturday as a result of the concussion he suffered against England 2 weeks ago. He is returning home today. Etzebeth had to leave the field in the first half at Twickenham after he clashed with an English opponent, and he did not play against Italy in Florence as part of the return to play protocol. The Springboks will not call up replacement because they currently have sufficient cover in that position with Pieter Steph du Toit, Lood de Jager and Franco Mostert still part of the squad. There are also some utility forwards who can provide extra cover if needed. Other stories are making the rounds today. Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder Hlompo Kekana is among the 10 nominees for the FIFA Puskás Award 2016 for the best goal of the year. Kekana scored from the halfway line against Cameroon in an African Nations Cup qualifier in March. Now, this goal is one of those that is seen as the one that was probably be as good as any other, and that's hence the short list. Now, Messi's long free kick in Argentina's Copa America 4-0 semi-final victory over the United States, Neymar's flick and volley for Barcelona against Villarreal, and Saúl's sublime solo effort for Atletico Madrid in their Champions League semi-final win over Bayern Munich are among the leading contenders. Composure will be a key factor that will determine Banyana's results against Cameroon in the second match of the 2016 Women's African Cup of Nations today. The home team received a massive support in its opening 2-0 win over Egypt on Saturday. It will be up to the South Africans to turn the home supporters against their own, something very unlikely.
Banyana will now not only have to deal with the match itself, but also the 12 men on the stands. They will have to apply the same brave attitude they displayed in the previous match.
We worked hard as a team, I think. We kept on fighting, and then that was important for us. Going into a tough battle with Cameroon, we're going to have to work hard, we're going to have to fight together and be determined.
Coming into the tournament, caretaker coach Desiree Ellis emphasized a solid start to avoid playing catch-up in the group stages. A win could have given them that cushion. They had a better chance against their neighbors than they would have against the hosts. Despite all of that, the team spirit was certainly not dampened.
This is a tournament. We didn't get the points we wanted in the first match, but all is not lost. We just need to pick ourselves up and play even better than what we did, and we're capable of that. And obviously try and support each other on the field as well.
A plus for Banyana is the solid defensive line and the ability to create opportunities. However, they look desperate in front of goal, and their focus should be on composure. Lebahantube, SABC News, Yaoundé, Cameroon.
Let's have a quick look at the midweek PSL fixtures in the ABSA Premiership starting tonight, the 22nd of November. We've got a couple of matches on the go. And here they are. Platinum Stars against bottom of the log, Ajax Cape Town City against Maritzburg United. Then Chipa United against Orlando Pirates. All matches kicking off at 7:30, as you'll see. Tomorrow evening, we've got Kaizer Chiefs who are looking to get back to winning ways against their former coach, Stuart Baxter, who's going to be leading SuperSport United, who put 6 past Orlando Pirates the last time out. Golden Arrows, who are second on the log, up against Mamelodi Sundowns, the defending champions, and that match will be at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium. Dr. Mulimela Stadium is where Baroka FC play against Bloem Celtic. Bidvest are the log toppers against Highlands Park. That's Gordon Egerson's Highlands Park. And Polokwane City against Free State Stars at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium. All those matches kicking off at 7:30 p.m. Now, the International Olympic Committee has stripped 7 2012 Olympians of their medals now because of doping. A further 5 athletes were disqualified from their events. The only gold medal winner was Russia's Yulia Zaripova, the 3,000-meter steeplechase champion. The rest of those losing their medals were all weightlifters. These include silver medalist Natalia Zabolotnaya and Alexander Ivanov of Russia. The IOC has been retesting samples from 2008 and 2012 Olympics in Beijing and London. 98 samples have come back as positive. And finally, Poland's Mac Poszwald is a new champion of the Drone Champions League, or DCL, after winning the final race in Romania race of a new gaming craze that is sweeping through the world, drone racing.
The venue for the race was Salina Turda, the oldest and most famous salt mine in Romania. After the pilots had made themselves familiar with the track, the race was dominated by tough battles and close overtaking maneuvers. Poszwald of TBS X-Blades won the final from second place Czech Jan Mittner from Wildcard. Germany's Lucas Wall racing for Fluidino finished third, and Dinesh Jogi from Gemfan of the Netherlands fourth. Drone racing involves steering flying robots with a maximum speed of 140 kilometers per hour through gates and pylons using tiny and very precise joystick movements. The pilots use virtual reality goggles to view the course in real time from the drone's perspective. The racer feels like they're sitting in a cockpit in the drone itself.
Now that is a sport I'm going to save up for and take up. Up next, Phil Hawkins with the weather.
Thank you very much. Let's take a look at the weather. As usual, we start off with Southern Africa and our rainfall. Well, we're expecting a lot of it for today. It's going to start off with isolated showers, and those are going to start to extend down the southern coastline as we see low pressure systems in this area. Now, we do have higher pressure systems which are moving in towards that southern coastal area. But that is going to cause conditions which are going to see an interaction between low and high, and that's going to bring in rainfall throughout South Africa's eastern regions, through its central interior as we move later into the day, but primarily through South Africa's western coastline there we're seeing widespread showers and thunder showers there. The rest of Southern Africa expecting at least isolated showers for today, really, depending on where you are. Some of the major cities are expecting a bit of a drier one, but let's take a look first of all at where we're seeing these wet conditions. PE at 24 degrees, expecting those showers extending all the way north to Pretoria, 31, Cape Town, 26, but expecting widespread showers and thunder showers. So do be aware of that. We are expecting a lot of rainfall there. Gaborone is at 32 degrees. Now you'll notice that most of the rainfall does avoid Harare, Bulawayo and the surrounding areas, but this is not to say that there will be no rainfall in Zimbabwe for today. Might just see some isolated showers around some of the less populated areas of Southern Africa. Let's take a look now at what's going on in Central Africa. Well, we do already have storms developing in quite a dense band throughout that central interior. What those are going to do as we move through the day is they're going to split into two, the main part of which moving south in towards the Angolan highlands there, and that's going to cause, again, a lot of showers and thunder showers in the area for that western interior of Central Africa. Now, the eastern regions, again, do expect mostly some rainfall, at least isolated showers, but not particularly heavy in most of these areas. Kampala, 24 degrees, and Juba, 37. But we are expecting warm conditions to continue. As you can see there, Bangui at a 37-degree maximum as well. Rainfall continuing as well along parts of that northern coastline of Africa. Those cold fronts really passing through and bringing temperatures down, bringing rainfall in, which is great news for the area as we haven't seen much rainfall there in the last few months. And of course, we're expecting the cloud cover in relation to that as well. Cairo is at 25 for today, Benghazi at 19. And as you'll see, that low pressure system, which is bringing in these cooler conditions, will be bringing in some rainfall to the area. Also expecting cooler conditions and the possibility of some rainfall around Rabat and Marrakesh. You can see that very strong system just north there behind our banner. But what we're also seeing is some rainfall along that southern coastline. Not too much as usual, change of season here. Moving into northern hemisphere winter, not going to see too much rainfall around this area, but nevertheless a tropical enough zone there that we will still see some rainfall affecting that area. Now, Rabat does peak at only 17 degrees and Marrakesh at only 16. And again, this is the result of that same low pressure system and that same cold front. Now, this is where you can contact us with any questions, queries or feedback, SABC Weather Desk. So it's email weather@sabc.co.za or give us a call on 011 714 5077. That's it from me for now. Have yourself a great day.
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded. And we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river. And if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
AIDS and poverty did not deter Mpumi's success.
Being an orphan or coming from poverty or having seen what HIV and AIDS does to a person that you love takes nothing away from you. It means that you are part of a selective few who have had to face a very, very marginalized struggle.
Abuse is a lonely journey that needs compassion.
I came across as a very confident, ambitious person, but behind that mask was somebody who had serious anxiety problems, a person who had knots in their stomach continuously, a person who could be in company and would feel very lonely.
Being away from his birth country did not stop his hunger to succeed.
Boxing was the way out. Turning professional would give me an income. That was the solution to the problems I've had for so many years.
For more inspiring stories, join Bupalong every Friday at 17:30.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally. For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates every hour. Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
It's 11 o'clock Central African time on this Monday, the 29th of August. Can you believe it? This is 2016. This is Newsroom. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome. We'll be with you until 12 o'clock this afternoon. Let's take a look at what we have for you in the kitty today. We're focusing on a very important story. The prophet of doom, who has been spraying doom aerosol into the faces of his congregants. He claims that this is to heal them. Our question of the day is, where do we draw the line with religious freedom? We are also conducting a poll for you today, and we're asking, should the prophet of doom be jailed? Well, you can let us know on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. The African Christian Democratic Party is considering legal action against self-styled prophets who abuse their congregations. The ANC and its veterans have agreed to convene a follow-up meeting to resolve all outstanding issues. Meanwhile, COSATU's 3-day Central Executive Committee meeting continues today. Those are some of your news stories coming up, but first let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the final hour. Very good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. A great mid-week sports day. Quite a lot of interesting news coming out of our world this side here. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the show today.
We have enough quality to win the game, so I think it's all up to us in the day to get the 3 points.
Kaizer Chiefs are eager to get back to winning ways in this week's round of ABSA Premiership fixtures. Mamelodi Sundowns' Slompo Kekana is shortlisted for FIFA's Best Goal for 2016 award, the famed Puskás Award. And early indications in Faf du Plessis' ball tampering hearing in Adelaide today are that he'll probably not be banned, but get fined a portion of his match fee instead. Of course, we eagerly await official confirmation of that hearing outcome, but for now it is back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The ANC and its veterans have agreed to convene a follow-up meeting to resolve all outstanding issues. The governing party's National Working Committee met the veterans in Pretoria yesterday to discuss their concerns around the state of the ANC and the country.
The public spat between the ANC and its veterans, who have recently been outspoken against allegations of corruption plaguing the party's leadership. They raised concerns about the moral compass of the current leadership following the loss of major metros in the August local government elections. Finally, President and the NWC members, under one roof, have struggled stalwarts. Despite earlier dismissing the stalwarts, the ANC is now singing a different tune.
We're trying to meet as soon as possible. We're suggesting Friday this week. They are conferring. They will come back to us so that we conclude these issues as soon as possible.
We have agreed that we will be guided by the culture, tradition, and values of the ANC. And that is extremely important for us to understand that. And as SG said, we had very robust discussions. There were difficult moments. We will address them. There were issues, also many issues that we agreed upon. And therefore, we are guided by the President when he said we should meet so that by the time December ends, we've resolved some of the issues that were outstanding.
The meeting comes a year before the ANC selective conference. The much-awaited meeting between the ANC veterans and the party leadership finally taking place here. Montlengani Dipoko, SABC News, Pretoria.
Speaking earlier to Morning Live, the ANC Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, says the meeting with the ANC veterans yesterday was fruitful and that they will continue to engage with them.
I think this meeting was probably one of the best things that has happened to the ANC in a long time, because it consolidated the values of the ANC in one space, where people were able to speak very openly about their concerns. We haven't had an opportunity to engage very deeply. There wasn't enough time, and we've agreed to continue with the discussion. But the entire NWC of the ANC was present, as well as about 45 veterans, of stalwarts and veterans of the ANC. Primarily, the discussion verged on the fact that the veterans felt that there need to be a strengthening of the ANC and that the values of the ANC need to be re-inculcated. There was disappointment about the leadership's lack of implementing decisions of the National General Council, looking at questions of, obviously the top of mind issue for them is this broad perspective of an ANC that is a corrupt ANC.
Yeah. Building strong COSATU unions and finding solutions to the socio-economic challenges facing the country will dominate the Federation's three-day Central Executive Committee. Now, the meeting began yesterday on Monday here in Johannesburg.
COSATU's crucial Central Executive Committee meeting, it seeks to discuss various issues facing the Federation, its strengths and weaknesses, and also plans to find ways of strengthening its affiliates.
We are going to look into the politics of our country. How do we strengthen the ANC? How do we strengthen the SACP, COSATU and SANCO as our allies in the political landscape? And of course, issues would have been raised relating to the president of the ANC or the ANC. Definitely COSATU as part of the alliance will have a view on those issues.
The capture report has also created instability within the Federation and its alliances. Two of its unions, NAHAO and the Communication Workers Union, are calling on the president to step down immediately. This will also be a priority in its discussions.
The last CEC in August, we said our unions are not prevented from talking within their own structures about these matters. So we'll hear then what happens. As to whether people have made these pronouncements or not, it becomes irrelevant when a COSATU view has been discussed and agreed upon.
The Federation has welcomed the proposed minimum wage of 3,500 Rand, but says it would have preferred an amount of between 4,500 Rand and 5,300 Rand a month. As COSATU's meeting gets underway, the ANC and its veterans have also met. This gives an indication that the ANC and its alliance partners are facing challenges, and this might have an impact on the party going forward. Mbali Sibanyoni, SABC News, Braamfontein.
A possible strike that could have disrupted travel over the festive season has been avoided after the National Union of Metal Workers, NUMSA, signed wage agreements with the retail motor and retail fuel industries. The 3-year agreement signed with the Retail Motor Industry Organization and the Fuel Retailers Association will lift wages by between 7 and 10%. Inflation currently stands at 6.1%. Workers who will be covered include the fuel pump attendants and employees of companies dealing in vehicle parts and services. There's meanwhile been mixed reaction to the proposed minimum wage. Over 51% of South Africans currently live on less than 1,000 Rand a month. But what do people think on the street about this?
Thulasizwe Mdadambane, a security guard in one of Johannesburg's leafy suburbs.
Which unit are you visiting?
But his monthly earnings of a little over 3,000 rand are simply not enough to help make ends meet. If you tally his responsibilities per month, he has nothing left. Thulasizwe feels that NEDLAC's proposed national minimum wage of 3,500 rand, the hourly rate set at 20 rand, is just too low.
You are not left with money to do anything out of the basic stuff, so you can only cover your basic needs, that's shelter, food and accommodation.
A normal working class household in South Africa, on average, will need something like 12,500 rands. However, if government proceeds with 3,500 rands, it will mean that government will have to cover the cost of housing, the cost of education, decent education, the cost of health care, through the NHI perhaps, and all the other amenities.
While South Africans are now called on to debate the proposed figure before it's finalized, Thulasizwe is among those who believe he is not going to be much better off. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Now remember this day, Tuesday the 22nd of November. This is when Eskom says that it's ready to go to the market for nuclear procurement. This follows Cabinet's announcement that the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa and Eskom would be partners in the procurement of new nuclear power stations. Meanwhile, the Department of Energy will announce the Integrated Resource Plan and Integrated Energy Plan documents on Tuesday, which is today.
Estimates suggest that if built, nuclear power stations may cost around 1 trillion rands and be the country's biggest procurement yet. Eskom, on the other hand, has suggested that the nuclear utility could pay for the nuclear build program because it would have accumulated cash reserves of around 150 billion rands over the next decade. It says given the roughly 80-year lifespan of nuclear plants, the program would pay for itself over those decades. Chief Nuclear Officer at Eskom, David Nichols, says the utility is in the process of preparing proposals to go to the market. Eskom will approach countries who are already using nuclear for help.
We are going out with an open proposal to the marketplace, say who wants to supply it. Buying a nuclear power station is a bit different to buying a coal station, primarily because with Medupi and Kusile we specified the individual components, we specified the overall size of the plant. With a nuclear program, you end up, like buying a motor car, you end up going and saying, I want to buy a motor car, what have you got to offer me? So you take the design that they're currently building. And the key comment to us is that we must end up with a standardized design that somebody else is already building. So we don't find ourselves in the first of a class. And again, like buying a motor car, you expect the supplier or the supply consortium to provide the financing for the deal. And that's very classical in the industry, is that you get the vast majority of the funding from the supplier. So as to who we're looking at, I can only comment that we've been open bid, so whoever comes in. But the logical countries, and it's a country-level bid, although it may be a commercial bid, it almost certainly would be based on a country-based consortium, would be classically the French, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, the South Koreans, and possibly Japanese. Those are the people who today, in the last few years, have been building the kind of reactor we're looking to acquire, which is a pressurized water reactor.
Some have argued that South Africa does not need a fleet of nuclear power plants. Firstly, because it's experiencing a dwindling demand scenario for power as the energy intensity is decreasing. And secondly, because the country's ability to access alternative sources of power has improved significantly. But Nichols disagrees.
There is a view which says that we don't need the power and that growth of power is not going to happen. That is not the case in the world economy as a whole. It's not the case in any major economy. The only time in which a country goes on growing and has less power demand is when it goes into a knowledge-based economy, like the Europeans or the Americans. I do not believe we're yet at that stage. We will get there one day, hopefully, but at the moment I don't believe this country is in a stage where we can say we're going to move from a heavy industrial mining base to a knowledge-based economy base.
The Department of Energy will on Tuesday announce the draft of the Integrated Resource Plan as well as the Integrated Energy Plan documents. Diabo Seito, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Department of Energy is hosting that media briefing today. Let's find out from SABC economics reporter Diabo Seto. Who's on standby to give us an update. Diabo, very good morning, and can you give us an update as to what is happening there?
Good morning, Elvis. Yes, I have attended the Department of Energy's press briefing with regards to the Integrated Energy Plan and the Integrated Resource Plan. These are plans that give us guidelines about what government is thinking with regards to the energy mix, with regards to energy security, job security within the energy sector, and everything that has to do with electricity now and into the future, from now until say 2037, 2050 in this case. I know the topical issue with regards to this briefing is that our viewers probably want to know where government is at with regards to the procurement of nuclear energy. We are aware that last week Friday, Cabinet already gave the green light to Eskom and the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa to go ahead and partner up and do the whole nuclear procurement. Yesterday, just as that clip had said, Eskom says it's going to the market, it's testing the market. It will give a few countries who have already done this a try in terms of them coming into the system and establishing this procurement. But I've got an expert on energy issues who can give us a view on where exactly is government's head when it comes to nuclear energy, and what's going to happen with the rest of the energy mix, the renewables, the coals, and everything else. I've got Mr. Chris Yelland. He is with EE Publishers, and he's going to give us a few pointers on what to look out for and what's important with regards to this government plan. Mr. Yelland, thank you very much for your time. The very topical issue here is with regards to the nuclear plan. Yesterday, as I had already indicated to you, that Eskom says it's going ahead to the market, it's testing the market. It must be disappointing for other analysts and perhaps yourself that government is giving go ahead to nuclear.
Well, it's not that I'm disappointed. The Department of Energy today has given a signal that there is going to be an open, transparent and participative public process that's going to start now and end at the end of February next year, followed by a month of so-called policy adjustment, of the final integrated resource plan for electricity being gazetted probably in April or May next year. However, despite giving out the signal of a public participation process, it seems quite clear that Eskom has already chosen the scenario of the integrated resource plan on which it is going ahead with a nuclear procurement, a request for proposals, followed by a procurement for a nuclear reactor, first nuclear reactor, by 2025. It seems to me this is in stark contrast with the department's commitment to an open process where the amount of nuclear new build and the date, certainly in the base case that was presented by the Department of Energy this morning, only requires a reactor in 2037. Yet Eskom has apparently already decided, on how it's going to proceed and on what quantity and when.
If I could just interject there, the minister actually, when we asked her about that, she said that because they are the owners of everything that has to do with nuclear, surely that sort of answers your question, doesn't it?
Not really. For me, it's not about Eskom doing what it wants. It has got to follow the integrated resource plan for electricity, which has not been finalized yet and is only going to be finalized next year. I even wonder whether there could be legal challenges if Eskom proceeds with a nuclear new build program, which is in contradiction with the integrated resource plan for electricity, which has not even been finalized yet.
The whole point of this IRP is that the public must now comment on it. They must look at it and say, we want this, we don't want this, we want this at this time, and we don't want this at this particular time. What can you advise my viewers to be looking out for when they're looking at this draft and how they should comment on it?
Well, I think one should look out for the restraints that have been, the artificial restraints that have been placed on renewable energy in the base case that was presented by the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy made it clear that this is just a base case. It is the first stab, and there's going to be a whole lot of different scenarios, and they're not committing to one particular scenario at this stage. But Eskom seems to have already committed to the scenario that it prefers and is already proceeding on this basis. I think the public should stand up for this.
Tell us what the plan tells us about renewable energy. We know that there's an issue where Eskom is not really enthusiastic about IPPs and renewable energy.
Well, the base case of the IRP restrains artificially the amount of renewable energy that will be installed per annum. This is a completely artificial restraint based on the Integrated Resource Plan of 2010. Things have radically changed since then, including the cost of renewable energy and the ability of the industry to deliver renewable energy into the grid. I believe that we should be removing these artificial constraints on renewable energy so that renewable energy can take its rightful place based on its least cost in the energy mix of South Africa.
Mr. Yelland, thank you very much for your time. I know you're quite pressed for time. Thank you so much for your input. That was Mr. Chris Yelland. He is with EE Publishers. He was giving us an update on what exactly is contained in the Integrated Resource Plan. This is the Department of Energy's plan and also the Integrated Energy Plan for the country's energy mix. We've already heard that, of course, energy or nuclear procurement is going ahead, and there doesn't seem to be much of a ceiling in terms of how much can be procured. The starting point was previously 9,600 megawatts. This seems like it will and can increase to the ceiling. But our viewers should remember that this is just a draft that is out for public comment. The public, which is you at home, our viewers, are entitled to look into the Department of Energy's website, look at how you can make changes or make recommendations in how you want the energy mix to be done for your energy future in South Africa.
Diaboseto, thank you so much for your time and joining us there. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that.
Certain choices in life lead us not to our destination. Prostitution will not.
Everything that I used to do then, it was something that I never thought of, I never dreamed of.
One bad choice in life led her to another.
Most of my clients, they used to ask me a question, what am I doing in that industry? Because it does not suit me at all.
Her demons haunted her until she changed her life.
I used to pray that, Lord, if you can deliver me from these drugs, I promise you that I will serve you for the rest of my life.
She has since found peace and is serving her community.
We'll try by all means to spend time with all of our kids.
Join your host, Buleng Mulabati, every Friday at 17:30.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's social media and technology landscape. 21st century economies rely on technology to truly thrive.
We have quite a comprehensive portfolio of interventions in the tech entrepreneurship space.
And Africans are using tech and social media to solve the continent's unique challenges.
App Nigeria is an online marketplace.
Radio Vibe is a social media platform for radio music.
That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Management at the Tshwane University of Technology says that students successfully completed 2 exam sessions yesterday following attempted disruptions from a group of students who were opposing the exams. Buses ferrying students to the Tshwane Event Center where the exams took place were escorted by the police.
Barricading roads to prevent buses from accessing campuses as some students call for exams to be postponed. They say it will be suicidal for them to sit for exams whilst unprepared.
We want to be given a time to prepare for the exams, not the issue of the people just coming and decide on our behalf. We are the one who decide for our future.
Yesterday, this bus was torched, allegedly by a group of disgruntled students, demanding the suspension of exams until next year.
What we try to do now is to say to the police, please go and escort our buses from the depot to Swashangube, which they did. And then almost 19 buses were transported from Swashangube to the showground where the exam is taking place. And then all our students were sitting the examination uninterrupted. They wrote the exam peacefully throughout this first session.
Mogola says it's only a small group that is disrupting the exam process. He says the institution has asked for tight security at both campuses as well as the exam center. Students who are writing exams are being transported by buses under police escort. Mlimo Onemoto, SABC News, Soshanguve.
Now, for the latest on the TUT story, on the line we are joined by Villa de Reiter, TUT spokesperson. Mr. Reiter, very good afternoon to you, or good morning rather, and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
Now, yesterday there were some slight challenges in Soshanguve and the South Campus when a group of students tried to disrupt the examination proceedings. Today, how is the situation there? And also give us an overview of all the TUT campuses.
The situation is calm at all our campuses. We've been monitoring the situation at the Soshanguve North and South campuses very closely. During the night, there were some attempts at disrupting those campuses. However, the situation has been contained. And I have to commend the South African police for the support that they have been providing to ensure that students are transported safely to the Tshwane Event Centre and that they are allowed to sit for the exams. At our other campuses, the distant campuses in Bombela, Polokwane, and in Madasleni, the exams continued without any incident. And I've listened to the students who said they will decide on their own future. Somewhere there comes a point where you need, as an institution, to make a decision in the interest of the majority of students. And we have to consider the future of the majority of our students. These guys who don't want to write exams, in many instances, haven't qualified to write exams. They don't have predicates, and therefore they have nothing to lose. And it's not fair then to intimidate other students who want to write. There has been attempts to torch buildings. There's been an arson attempt. A bus was torched on Sunday, and 16 people have been arrested for arson and malicious damage to property. There also is a court interdict in place. It was obtained on the 13th of October, and those guys need to be reminded that the university will act in accordance with that court interdict. And one of the points on that interdict is that no person has the right to disrupt activities of the institution.
Now, you did indicate that these students who have not qualified to sit for examinations are the ones that are disrupting. How many of them are there that's disrupting the exams?
It's not quite clear how many of them are there. We can go through the academic records, but it's not necessarily everyone who doesn't qualify. But it seems like it's a group of about 20 people. And they use intimidation and, in some instances, you might say guerrilla tactics to put fear into students not to go write the exams.
Now, up to now, what is the percentage of students actually writing the exams?
I don't have the exact figures. I am waiting for them, but I would say from we got yesterday, definitely in the vicinity of about 90% of students who wrote yesterday. Remember, there's always students who can't make it because they're sick. There are sick exams coming up. And for students who are concerned about their performance in the examinations, we understand that it's traumatic when you have to be escorted to go write exams, escorted by the police. If they don't pass, but they make it, their grade is good enough to go write it up, they have a second opportunity to go write.
And when will that second opportunity be?
The supplementary exams are scheduled from the 9th to the 15th of December. We have extended the academic year because of the previous disruption by two weeks to allow them time to complete the curriculum. We've opened up our online platforms for additional information and for them to also submit online inquiries to lecturers who've been on duty for long hours a day to help students to prepare for the exams.
Mm-hmm. Now, those that will not be writing, Mr. Reiter, what will happen to them?
They haven't qualified. They don't have a predicate. They will have to apply to study again next year. Those who don't write because they are traumatized, I would advise them to go seek counselling and come with a sick letter and, in line with the normal procedure, apply for a sick exam.
Thank you so much for your time and that update. That was Villa de Reiter, spokesperson for TUT, giving us the latest there from that campus. As you heard, of course, the exams has been interrupted by some of the students, but it's going smoothly, she says. Well, let's take a look now at what you have to say on social media. And we start off with #DoomProphet. The comments and memes are still doing the rounds. This meme is captioned, getting ready for church. Then Ima says it's either lack of knowledge that dooms our people or vulnerability. And this tweet quotes a Bible verse. It says, God said, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Hosea 4 verses 6. And Lucas says, Kanye West ain't feeling the Kanye West rather. Get something off his Kanye chest. See a shrink. This ain't no Kanye test. Kanye get well, bless finesse. Well, there's a poet that don't even know it. Now, then the energy is, #energy is trending due to the conference that is underway. The Department of Energy is expected to announce its draft integrated resource plan and integrated energy plan shortly. Then, once again, I see there we got Kanye West. #Kanye West has been hospitalized in Los Angeles for exhaustion and has cancelled the rest of his tour to the dismay of his fans. And that's why you heard the little poem earlier by one of the people coming through there. In international news, the 7.3 magnitude #Japan earthquake, which struck near the Fukushima region, has led to tsunami warnings. Sirens are going off. Now here's some cell footage where this person shows the bad weather and the violent waves hitting the shore. Remember the tsunami a couple of years ago? How terrible that was. It's almost reminiscent of some of the scenes that we've seen here when we had the storms here in Johannesburg the week or so ago. Then, icy and foggy conditions in northeastern China are said to be the cause of the massive car pileup involving 52 vehicles. 17 people are believed to have died and 37 injured. Now those are some of the social media trends. Now you can still let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on our Facebook page. Remember, we're asking you the question about the doom, the prophet of doom, Pastor, and we're asking you on the question of the day, where do we draw the line with religious practice? As well as on the poll that we're currently running for you since this morning, we want to know from you whether or not this pastor or this prophet should be jailed. That's on the poll. We'll keep you updated on that. In fact, there it is now. 21 hours left for you to vote. So far, 401 people have voted, and 81% of you are saying, lock him up, throw the key away. He must be arrested. 19% of you are saying no, and I'm sure that's some of the congregants there. Those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue here on the Newsroom. Now, the world is filled with a number of crimes, but one of the crimes that is on the increase is ransomware. This cybercrime in 2016 alone has increased by, listen to this, 128%. And it continues to be the fastest growing crimes. Ransomware is a type of malware that locks a victim's computer and decrypts their data, demanding them to pay a ransom in order to regain control over the affected devices or files. Now, victims of this crime is usually businesses and entrepreneurs and the healthcare sector. Now, to talk to us about ransomware, we are joined by Trevor Kutsia. He's the Regional Director from Intel Security South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Trevor, very good morning to you and welcome.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Ransomware is one of the fastest growing, 128%, that's the number I read earlier.
Yeah.
Is that how high this crime is growing out of control?
It is, from a recent report, we did release at 128% year-over-year growth. Our Q2, Q2 this year, we saw a spike of an increase of 1.3 million new ransomware samples that hit the marketplace.
1.3 million, and that's globally, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And in South Africa, have you counted that?
So it's difficult to get specific numbers in geographic regions.
Yes.
But we continue to globalize all the information through our global threat intelligence.
Why do we see this increase?
Well, it's pretty much a return on investment, right? I mean, historically, where you see payment card information being stolen from financial institutions, et cetera, to take that information and then utilize it, sell it off, buy goods, sell them on the black market, the cost to effort is quite high. When you start looking at ransomware, you can pretty much buy ransomware as a service. You don't even need to be a programmer today.
I tell you.
You know, the thing is that pretty much, like you said, it locks the computer down, it encrypts all the electronic files, and if a user or a company wants to use that file again, they have to pay the ransom. So pretty much you deploy and wait for the money.
Can it be undone once you've been captured?
Yes, I mean, primarily you'd want to prevent it to start.
Yes.
But if you are encrypted, there are a number of ways that you can decrypt it. One of the major things that we've done, it was in July this year, we created a partnership with European government agencies, as well as a number of cybersecurity organizations. And we started the No More Ransom initiative, where users, should they be hit by ransomware, they can investigate the type of ransomware that they do have, and they can go onto the website and get their decryption tools.
How much does decryption then cost you? Is it almost similar to the ransom price or not?
Well, the No More Ransom is a free initiative.
Yes.
To all people.
Oh, that's very good.
So, the drive is to educate people, let them understand what ransomware is, the mitigation available, as well as obviously the tools that, should they be encrypted.
Now, you mentioned it earlier, prevention is better than cure. That's what my grandmother always used to say. So how do you prevent this even before it starts?
Yeah, so primarily the way ransomware is delivered is primarily through email. So we're still seeing the spam at around 58% entering networks, and a lot of that email or phishing attacks makes up a lot of it.
And it will come in the form of what, that email?
So in email, for example, we see some popular headings, for example, mail failed delivery, or your tax return.
Yes.
And it has an attachment where you double-click on the attachment, thinking that it is a legitimate file, and it then downloads the ransomware and starts to encrypt all your electronic files.
So if you don't know where the email is coming from, don't open it.
Well, exactly. You have to critique all your mails. In terms of protection, it's security awareness.
Yes.
Critique the mails. Be careful of drive-by downloads or those pop-up adverts. Don't click on anything you don't know about. It's really about awareness to start.
Now, looking at the Protection of Personal Information, or the POPI Act that's currently underway, what would be the role of this particular act to safeguard people, or is that not even part and parcel of this discussion?
Well, ransomware, I mean, a lot of the initiatives around the POPI would relate back to protection mechanisms being put in place against ransomware. However, it's not the same initiative. It's protection of sensitive and critical data, personal information of clients and individuals, where ransomware is a cyber criminal attack on individuals, companies, healthcare even, as well as critical infrastructure.
Let's look now at small businesses and how they should protect themselves, and even the individual home computers, that sort of thing. What do you do, and what sort of advice would you give to consumers out there?
Yeah, sure. So initially, like I said, security awareness is number one. Prevention is better than cure. There's also a number of technologies that you can start deploying. A lot of people are looking, obviously, it's the antivirus solutions.
Yes.
You can put in more advanced technologies, for example, dynamic application containment, where it starts to block the actual encryption process, as well as wonderful technologies like sandboxing and machine learning and behavioral analysis.
Sandboxing? Explain.
Yeah. So pretty much sandboxing is it's a virtual environment where organizations can put potential grayware or malicious code and see how that code executes within a virtual environment. We do it via static and dynamic analysis. And then we understand the potential threat to the organization. How would this file have reacted in my organization? And based on that response, we were able to then block the malicious code from activating.
So people that are very worried right now, and if they attack, can they contact your company, or who do they contact?
Yeah, we've got a broad-based number of resellers, but yeah, you can go to our site, intelsecurity.com or mcafee.com. But another initiative as well, just on the back of that, is back up your data.
Yeah.
Back up, and then when you haven't, back up again, because if you are attacked, you have the ability to clean and then restore your data as well.
If you move from one computer to the other, do you also have to protect that computer first before you do anything with software, or what do you do?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you taking on any new hardware, predominantly what you would want to do is make sure that that PC, mobile device, Mac, doesn't matter what it is, has got the relevant protections in place before you shift the data, because there may be a bot or an old virus that is sitting on your machine, that when you transfer it, because that's a lot of the time where the new ransomware is being pushed down, is via old bots that is still resident in memory in computers.
Internet cafes that people visit, is that a good idea?
It depends on what you want to do, I guess.
If you do online banking, for instance.
It's very risky. You know, the problem is that you don't know what is sitting on that endpoint in terms of protection. You don't know, if you're connecting to public Wi-Fi spots, anything that anything that you would do at the ATM in terms of hiding away. If you have that same threat or concern in a Wi-Fi or a hotspot, I wouldn't do it.
My good sir, thank you so much for your time, Trevor.
Thank you so much for your time.
Now that was Trevor Coetzee, Regional Director from Intel Security South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, talking to us about ransomware. Now you've been warned. Check it out. Don't just open any email that comes to you, even if it says that you have R1 million in your bank account in an hour. Don't do it. We'll take a break. We'll be right back after that.
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed 3 al-Qaeda suspects.
Death toll in Yemen's 18-month-old civil war now stands at about 10,000.
People get killed or die and are actually buried before they're recorded. And we don't have a way of recording that, but we know the numbers are much higher.
Water restrictions are to be imposed on villages in and around the Nkomazi municipality.
Pumps can't pump the water because there's no water in a river. And if the water is coming back, then it's full of mud.
Those who can pray and those who can do any miracle to make sure that we've got enough rain, give it a try.
What is a national anthem and why do we need national anthems?
A national anthem becomes an instrument to foster social cohesion, identity, to create a sense of identity of a country.
It does happen that people feel that they cannot commit to what the national anthem does.
Unity is not formed from the sky. People don't just despise the national anthem, but it is because of certain things that are actually happening. The issue of languages, for instance. The issue of apartheid statues and monuments.
Welcome back. And of course, we come back. The very first story in sports is about South African captain Faf du Plessis, who has now avoided suspension for ball tampering in the second cricket test against Australia in Hobart. An International Cricket Council hearing found du Plessis guilty of ball tampering, and he's been fined 100% of his match fee. An ICC hearing today in Adelaide found du Plessis guilty of trying to doctor the match ball with what appeared to be a mint in his mouth. The ICC deems this to be a breach of their code of conduct, and as such, du Plessis has been fined and also been slapped with 3 demerit points. Should he get 1 more demerit point in a 24-month period, he will be in danger of suspension. Du Plessis had pleaded not guilty. Now, composure will be a key factor that will determine Banyana's results against Cameroon in their second match of the 2016 Women's African Cup of Nations match today. The home team received massive support in its opening 2-0 win over Egypt on Saturday. It will be up to the South Africans to nullify the proverbial 12th player, the home supporters.
Banyana Banyana will now not only have to deal with the match itself, but also the 12 men on the stands. They will have to apply the same brave attitude they displayed in the previous match.
We worked hard as a team, I think. We kept on fighting, and then that was important for us. Going into a tough battle with Cameroon, we're going to have to work hard, we're going to have to fight together and be determined.
Coming into the tournament, caretaker coach Desiree Ellis emphasized a solid start to avoid playing catch-up in the group stages. A win could have given them that cushion. They had a better chance against their neighbors than they would have against the hosts. Despite all of that, the team spirit was certainly not dampened.
This is a tournament. We didn't get the points we wanted in the first match, but all is not lost. We just need to pick ourselves up and play even better than what we did, and we're capable of that. And obviously try and support each other on the field as well.
A plus for Banyana Banyana is the solid defensive line and the ability to create opportunities. However, they look desperate in front of goal, and their focus should be on composure. Lebahantube, SABC News, Yaounde, Cameroon.
Now, Mamelodi Sundowns midfielder Hlompo Kekana is among the 10 nominees for the FIFA Puskás Award 2016 for the best goal of the year. Kekana scored from the halfway line against Cameroon in an African Nations Cup qualifier in March. The long-range wonder goal stands out from thousands of entries worldwide to be ranked amongst the top 10 in the world. Now, Messi's long free kick in Argentina's Copa America 4-0 semi-final victory over the United States, Neymar's flick and volley for Barcelona against Villarreal, and Saúl's sublime solo effort for Atletico Madrid in their Champions League semi-final win over Bayern Munich among the leading contenders. Now let's have a quick look at the midweek PSL fixtures starting tonight, the 22nd of November. Royal Bafokeng Stadium is where Ajax Cape Town, who are currently propping up the bottom of the log, play Platinum Stars. Cape Town City will be playing Maritzburg United at Athlone Stadium. And in Port Elizabeth, Chipa United will be looking for a win against Orlando Pirates. Now, Kaizer Chiefs are up against SuperSport United tomorrow evening. That match should be fairly interesting between the players and coach who are on opposing sides who knew each other very well from previous seasons. Mamelodi Sundowns against Golden Arrows. Mamelodi Sundowns defending champions. Golden Arrows, you will remember, are now second on the log. Baroka FC up against Bloem Celtic at the Dr. Molemela Stadium. And then the Bidvest Stadium is where Bidvest Vets, who are table toppers, face Highlands Park. Polokwane City against Free State Stars at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium. All these matches kicking off at 7:30 p.m. And now, going on to other stories that are making headlines today. Springbok lock Eben Etzebeth will not be considered for Saturday's rugby test match against Wales in Cardiff on Saturday as a result of the concussion he suffered against England 2 weeks ago. He is returning home today. Etzebeth had to leave the field in the first half at Twickenham after he clashed with English opponent Velipula, and he did not play against Italy in Florence as part of the return to play protocol. The Springboks will not call up a replacement because they currently have sufficient cover in that position with Peter Steph du Toit, Louis de Jager and Franco Moster still part of the squad. There are also some utility forwards who can provide extra cover should it be necessary. And now to a story with a slight difference. Poland's Mac Poschwald is the new champion of the Drone Champions League, the DCL, after winning the final race in Romania of a new gaming craze that is sweeping through the world, drone racing. The venue for the race was Salina Turda, the oldest and most famous salt mine in Romania. After the pilots had made themselves familiar with the track, the race was dominated by tough battles and close overtaking maneuvers. Poschwald of TBS X-Blades won the final from second place Czech Jan Mittner from Wildcard. Germany's Lucas Wahl racing for Flidino finished third, and Dinesh Jogi from Gemfan of the Netherlands fourth. Drone racing involves steering flying robots with a maximum speed of 140 kilometers per hour through gates and pylons using tiny and very precise joystick movements. The pilots use virtual reality goggles to view the course in real time from the drone's perspective. The racer feels like they're sitting in a cockpit in the drone itself. Fantastic stuff. Like I said a little earlier, something I definitely want to save up for and get involved in. Now, the International Olympic Committee has stripped 7 2012 Olympians of their medals because of doping. A further 5 athletes were disqualified from the events. The only gold medal winner was Russia's Yulia Zaripova, the 3,000-meter steeplechase champion. The rest of those losing their medals were all weightlifters. These include silver medalist Natalia Zablotnaya and Alexander Ivanov of Russia. The IOC has been retesting samples from 2008 and 2012 Olympics in Beijing and London, respectively. 98 samples have come back as positive. And that's where we leave it with the sports. That's where we leave it with the show. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp till midday. You can join us again on Newsroom. But in the meantime, I do believe we might have time for a little bit of a look at weather. If not, top of the hour is Midday Report. See you then. Bye-bye.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
As a transgender activist, do you feel welcome? Are you free here in South Africa?
In South Africa, we think that 1994 just took an eraser and erased a lot of the issues of apartheid.
What is the difference between you and me?
You know, a person can easily say we're all human, but we need to embrace our differences.
The fact that it is called a gay club, why are other clubs not called other things?
It's a safety thing, you know. By virtue of actually speaking about this incident, brings about the question of why do you even need a club that needs to be called a gay club? I cannot walk into a club with my lover, my male lover. I cannot walk into Taboo, a South African club, and just hold my lover and we kiss, and then people think it's okay.
They do that?
Well, we do, but then there have been instances of actually people, bouncers walking in and actually telling you to stop or get out of the club.
Do you think it was a mistake that you were born a boy?
I've come to, not to peace with my body, but I've accepted myself where I am completely.
Somebody may say you are lying, because if you have accepted yourself completely as you are, you would be the boy that your mom gave birth to.
I can self-actualize. I can become what I want to be at the end of the day.
Police found powerful military explosives when they swooped on a house in Springs on the Gauteng.
Some of the weapons seized at this house included rocket-propelled grenades, rifles, and even rounds of ammunition.
All military explosives that we found that you cannot obtain a commission.
The weapons found at the house not only had the potential to cause major damage to property, but they also put many lives at risk.
I could have lost any one of my family members, or most of my family members.
Give me that paperwork.
Where is your
Give me that paperwork.
Where is your paperwork?
Like I'm everything, I don't know what's going on. Suddenly I'm locked up.
This is not fair.
That's fair.
O kuputse rand ka 200. Ha fetse kupula ka 200. O re ngwana o i-1. 150 plus koloi le yone tlamehile e nne another 150.
I'm just the one to lock you out.
Yes,
I'm
that's
the
one to
keys.
lock me then out.
You are starting gangsterism.
No! No! No!